Let's do this. Let's do this. Hello, everybody. It is the 30th of January, 2025. It is episode 239 of my live chat. What's my name, of course? No, it's not Snoop D-O-double-G. It's Luke Thomas, and I've got beard hair on my microphone. How are you doing today on this Thursday? Last Thursday of the month here for the first month of 2029. Let's see, on the docket today. Thanks to Bryce Mitchell, I suppose there will be some Hitler on the docket today, which is unfortunate. You would imagine that some of these things with the scholarship around them would be settled, but I suppose not in 2025 in the United States. Okay, that notwithstanding, there certainly is, let's see, Izzy back in action against Nassourdine Imavov. We can talk about that. Next week, UFC 312, we can talk about that. By the way, this weekend, one of the best fights that you're going to see all year in boxing, David Benavidez taking on David Morrell. BC on the call, no less. That is going to be absolutely epic. A firefight, if ever there was one. We can talk about that. And anything else on your mind? Thumbs up if you're watching. Hit subscribe if you haven't. The way this works is we'll go for about an hour on your free questions. And then once that is done, if you would like, you're certainly under no obligation to do so. But if you so choose, and it's appreciated when you do, you can put in a donation into the super chat, ask a question, and then we'll go to the paid portion. With one exception. If you are a member of this channel, you can just contribute to the paid portion for free. You don't have to pay anything. And also you get videos that I only give to the members, including, I thought about taking it broader public, but I decided not to. I did about a 13-minute video explaining what had happened with Barbas. Jesus, I don't know what to say. He died on Saturday. You know what? Let's get this show started, and then I want to do some thank yous, if I may. Without further ado, y'all know the score. Let's do this. Most of you have, I'm sure all of you, or nearly all of you, have probably seen the news. Barbas died. Barbas died on Saturday. He had heart failure. There's a whole video. If you remember, you can, I won't rehash it. There's too much to it. Let me just say that I have been overwhelmed with the amount of response that notifying the world has yielded. I mean, I've been getting DMs, emails, text messages. I mean, the list is endless. I'm not even done responding to them all. I was just going through the rest of my texts today based on how many it's been. So let me just say to anyone who sent a kind note, to anyone who sent a nice DM or an email, whatever you did to express a kind and understanding sympathy, I really, really appreciate it. My family really appreciates it. I showed many of the messages to my family, and they were extremely appreciative. They wanted me to communicate to you guys how appreciative they were. So here I am doing it. Thank you very much. Also, I will say in our divided times, and these are divided times, nothing really brings people together like the understanding and the pain that goes with losing a dog. That is a pain that is rather universal, and there's really no way of denying that, unless you're a complete psychopath, I suppose. But for most, normal thinking adults, you can be very far apart on any number of issues. But I have found that there's a lot of people who know that situation, who know that struggle, who know that pain, and that was terrible. That was really, really, really terrible. That was really terrible. The house is so weird. It's so quiet. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, I could say a lot, but anyway, he was a big part of the old live chats, this new version of the live chat. You guys saw him not so much more recently when his health was, never really all that great, but certainly he's been on this chat many, many times. So gotta miss him, man. That was tough. That was real tough. That took a lot. But, anyway, if you remember, you can watch the video and I explain everything that happened. So anyway, all right, it's 3:08, so we'll go for about an hour and then we'll get to the paid questions. With that in mind, let me refresh the ones you guys put up yesterday. I put up a thread on the community section at youtube.com/Luke Thomas. You guys fill it up, and then we'll go to there. All right, let's pull this in, shall we? Oops, like that. Let's do it. Ooh, yeah, like that. Okay, and then one thing let me fix here. Okay. All right, let's go down to this first one. You can see, yes. Do you think Volkanovski, I'm assuming you mean Alexander Volkanovski, by now would have been a double champ with defenses at lightweight if Islam just wasn't there? That is an interesting one. I think certainly from a skills perspective, he is not overmatched by anybody, including even Islam, from a skill to skill. I mean, they don't have the exact same skills. Obviously, Islam is stronger in certain areas, but in general, I don't find that there is someone from a technique standpoint, purely technique standpoint, and a sophistication of their game and a smoothness to their game. I don't think there's really anybody at lightweight. I think that is at least peak Volkanovski anyway, better than that. The size factor makes it hard to say. That's the, I mean, he is a true featherweight. He is not, he's a small lightweight, and lightweights they're big. I mean, I know the name is lightweight. We, in a sort of colloquial sense, we don't treat that as something that's, gigantic or something, but they're big. These are stocky athletes. And I think either the wrestling itself, to some extent, you're like, who, Saryukian, I don't know. I mean, who knows if he would have made it to the finish line, but in this posited scenario, dude, even Gamrot would have been all over him. I'm not saying Gamrot wins, but that would have been trickier than the matchup might look. But the other part too is just being able to take punishment. You know what I mean? Do I think that Volkanovski is technique for technique, ability for ability, more skilled than someone like Justin Gaethje? Yeah, maybe so. Maybe so, but the reality is the punishing nature of how he hits, if you're not really physically, so yes, you have to have good defense, but you got to be sturdy. Dustin Poirier is sturdy at 155. You have to be that. I don't know how that portends success. So, I think on one level, what we're trying to get at here is there was a time and place where he was the number one guy in the sport, and that was very fair and very deserved, hard-earned. He was that guy. And when you watch that guy operate at the level that he operates, it does not appear that there are many people, if any, like him, even at 155. Islam is amazing, but again, they're a technique for technique. There's just stuff that Volkanovski is doing, especially in the stand-up, less so obviously in the ground, but certainly in the stand-up, that is very, very advanced relative to even what someone as good as Islam does. Granted, there is a discrepancy on the ground, but there's weight classes for a reason, and I know 45 to 55 is just a 10-pound jump, but that's a big jump in body type that he would have to go up against. And considering he peaked a little bit later into his prime, well, that's not quite true, but he peaked when he peaked, and he's 35-ish now. I forget the exact age, but I do think that the punishing nature of how big some of those guys are at 55 gives him problems. Yeah. Woo, Jesus. Whoops, hang on. Let's do this one. Did you hear Rogan agreeing with your video about Jiri and his weight during his podcast with him? I did not. I guess he still watches you and respects your opinions, I guess. Don't close the door on another invite, guys. I don't know how many different ways I can tell you this. It is not me who closed the door. Yeah, it is not me. Let me assure you, it is not me. It is not me. Oh, but what about the last video you did where you were critical? First of all, it wasn't even really that. I wasn't even very mean at all. Critical, but not mean. But even long before that, by other entities, not me, that was decided. I don't know what else to tell you. That was decided. I didn't have a hand in those deliberations. So the people to ask about that would be Joe. And then the folks who have been in his ear about having me on. It ain't me. It ain't me. Let's see. How did you handle the passing of Barbas with your daughter? I have a son about that age and a 12-year-old pup. He's doing well, but not sure how to handle the inevitable with a child that age. Violetta had something of a. This is not quite true, but she was very close with our cat. But she was too young to really understand when he died. She was reasonably close with our other dog who died in 2023, but even then she was still didn't quite understand what it meant. This one she got, and she did cry, but she did not. I'll say this: among the 3 pets, she did not have the strongest bond with Barbas. I mean, she had a strong bond. Again, she cried when we told her what happened. Like, please, I don't want you to think that she didn't care. She cared greatly. Speaking of which, she just came home. You might hear her scream. Ready? Let's see. you might. But like, if the roles had changed and like our cat had died this year with her, I think that would have been a much bigger issue. So we just told her the truth. We told her the truth. I mean, listen, here's the reality about Barbas too, is that, after we pulled him out of heart failure in Halloween, it wasn't like he was 100% after that. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like he was 100%. It was, he had, I mentioned this in the video I did. He did have some quality of life for sure in November and December. But the problems began to emerge a little bit late December, but really in January. And he was visibly ill. You know what I mean? So like the fact that he kind of things just bottomed out when they did, essentially, was not a great surprise. I mean, the timing is never great. It somewhat took me by surprise. But at the same time, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know it was going to be that day. I didn't know it was going to be that week. But I knew that the end could not have been far away. If that makes sense, right? So it's one of those situations where you don't know exactly when it's going to go, but you're not surprised that it happened relatively soon. I was hoping we were going to get 6 months out of him. They had said it's up to a year, but he had not just a heart failure in one of his, God, what the fuck did they tell me what had happened? Like, there was another issue with his heart beyond that. He was on medicine for it. And they told me that the double nature of that health ailment really shortened, possibility. But they said 6 months, maybe even 9 months was possible. He made it 3. He made it 3 after heart failure in it's a little hard to talk about, if I can be honest with you. He made it 3. He made it 3. So it wasn't, this wasn't like an old Yeller situation where the dog and the child had this like insane inseparable bond. They were close, but not so much that we had to like, really be very delicate about it. We treated it like you would tell any sad or unfortunate news to a 5-year-old. You tell them the truth, you comfort them, you try to answer any questions they have, you try to show them the good parts of the life that you led with them. You just try to be a good human. I don't know what the blueprint is on that. None of us really do, right? You just fucking that's what life is. You're just doing your best to be decent. I swear to God, that's all. That's really, at the end of the day, that is really all that it is. And none of this is exactly straightforward or simple. So, she cried, and I did too, and my wife did too, and we talked about it, and we were just trying to do our best. I don't really know. I don't have grand wisdom about this, Your Kayla Harrison predictions for the next few years. If the Nunes fight is possible, they should just skip the Peña one. Yes, although the Peña one is necessary because she's got the belt. So they got to do that one first. I would imagine that having the belt is a prerequisite to getting the Nunes fight. Not so much that Nunes wants to be champ and wear the belt, but pay-per-view points might be on the line. The UFC would need that to promote it properly. All the reasons that we typically understand why a belt is on the line for significant main events. Exceptions, but typically that's the rule. I tend to think that there's a couple of issues limiting her. One is the weight cut. Yes, she can make it. Yes, she looks like a physical beast doing it. But I just don't know in your 30s how many of those she's got. However many there are, she's going to absolutely wring that sponge dry. About that, I certainly have no doubt whatsoever. And I think she'll maximize the time she has left. I think she will become a UFC champion and make effective use of it. But I just don't know how many of those that she actually has. Like the notion that she has 10 of them, of course, is insane. I don't even know if she has 3. I mean, maybe she has that one, but 5? Does she have 5? I don't know. That's 5 brutal ass weight cuts. Like that's a lot. That's a lot. So we're not dealing with a huge number of fights, I'm going to guess. I tend to think she'll beat Peña, but the weight cuts are going to hurt her. That's one factor. The other factor I think is going to hurt her in terms of limiting. Not that she's not amazing. She's amazing, but like what's going to limit her. There hasn't been as much technical development on the striking side as I would have hoped. Not to say she doesn't. Listen, I've had Kayla in studio. I've interacted with her so many times. She is a very, very polite, nice professional in every possible way. She's really quite a lovely person. So this is not in any way personal. I really hope that's very clear. I'm trying to be respectful of everything she's accomplished as a judoka and an MMA fighter. She's going to be a UFC champion. I'd be very surprised if she doesn't. But the level, there was a couple of corners I thought she would have turned in terms of the striking development that haven't really happened. And I think that might limit her a little bit. Whether that makes a difference enough in the Nunes fight, it's hard to say. It very well could. But I'll say this, at a bare minimum, she will be UFC champion. She'll probably have some title defenses to that. But I just think between their age, the weight cut, and everything else, there's just not many of these anyway. So however many there are left, I appreciate them. They're going to be in short supply. Here we go. I still remember exactly where I was when Nick Diaz was issued a 5-year suspension at just 32 years of age. Yes, for marijuana. Can you believe it? If he hadn't been suspended and committed to fighting a reasonable schedule, how do you think he would have fared? Well, he didn't actually end up being suspended 5 years. Would he have been a top 5 guy, or was he already too far past his prime to do anything meaningful? You can speculate for 170, 185 since it's not clear which weight class he would have stayed at. Also checking to see if he reached out. I've not reached out to Mighty Mouse. I need to. I have his number. I can text him at any point. I just haven't. Obviously, I've been a little bit busy more recently. I think at 170, him being a top 5, even a top 3 guy is really not crazy at all. I think that very much is quite fair. And I think really on any given day, if he's really competing up to the limits of his potential, he could have been a UFC champion. I know there's some dispute about the Carlos Condit fight because Condit was on his bike for most of that fight and Diaz was getting picked apart, tried to chase him down, and then thinks like because he was walking forward, he deserved to win. So it's one of those things where but that was just an interim title anyway. That wasn't even really the full weight class title. Yes, in terms of like his full on ability, I think he easily could have been top 3 at 170. 185 is a little harder to say. I think you could have match made him to do interesting fights at 185 and even maybe beaten some top 10 guys back in his day anyway, but that's about it. That's about it. I don't think you could have gone a whole lot further than that. It's just a thing with Nick Diaz, and so the Diaz is more generally. It's like, remember when Nate was like pulled last minute to fight Conor the first time, and I don't remember what the odds were, but they were not great. And he was vacationing in Mexico on a boat when they got the call, and he had like 2.5 weeks to get ready, and they did the press tour, and it was madness. And then Nate goes out there and wins, and you're like, dude, how the fuck did he do that? When Conor just went through Dustin Poirier, just went through Jose Aldo, just went through, all of these donks, just went through all of them. And the answer is, dude, on the right day, when the Diaz's fight up to their potential, they can beat anybody. Like every time they go out there, no. More often than not, against the very, very best ones, no. But on the right day, that's what's part of the Diaz charm. Like the counting them out is real foolish, because they're capable of doing stuff like that. They're capable of surprising you in ways, at least during that era of their career anyway, that they're just always capable of that. Like, dude, when Nick Diaz fought Takanori Gomi, I can assure you people didn't have on their fucking bingo list that he was going to go plot to him. And that was Takanori Gomi. I'm not sure if that was exactly his peak. I'd have to go back and look at the exactly where he was. But, we're talking not far past him beating Jens Pulver, if I recall. Dude, he was on top of the fucking world. BJ Penn had beat him on Rumble on the Rock, but he was, there was a point in time where he was considered to be the best lightweight in the world. And this was like, I think they had fought at like 160 or whatever it was for Pride. And then Nick goes out there and, gets fucked up, and then go plot us. This is what I mean. Like, that's the Diaz charm. Like, they can do that at really any point. But are they gonna to be like a weight class champion and like consistently hold that? I think you have to be a little bit further along. There would have had to been much more wrestling. They would have had to be much more physicality with their game. But the last thing I'll say about the Diaz is the way to appreciate them is these guys were everyone knew you had to be in really good shape in order to fight MMA, but these guys took it to another level, like with the marathon training and like the triathlons. They were the first to like kind of normalize and mainstream how important that was. And then they built styles, not just like, oh, I have good cardio if I need it. No, I'm going to spend that. I'm going to spend it just by putting a pace on you. They were very, very, very good about that. And I think that that changed the game or I should say it helped the game, I think, in a pretty big way. Guys, again, they were in shape, but they weren't building styles around that kind of labor intensity until, the Diaz's showed like there's significant value in doing that, especially if you're not necessarily like a one-punch maniac. MMA was always, before the Diaz's got there, MMA was like one punch, put it on you and then call it a day. And in terms of like the striking meta that was involved at the time. And then they came around and they were like more about a bit of a volume play, but from a different kind of way, and incorporating more boxing, obviously training, which they had done with Andre Ward and other folks, and really beginning to put just a different style of striking in your face, and then marrying that with this sort of like much more different attitude about cardiovascular conditioning. Look what it yielded. If Adesanya wins this weekend, he might get a title shot for his next fight. But should he lose for the third time in a row, Luke, what chances are that he'll retire? People asked me this question before his last fight, and I wasn't too sure. I thought maybe he wouldn't do it for much longer. Then he kind of expressed some pretty great enthusiasm. The coaches at CKB, based on what they're telling everybody else who will listen, is that this guy is reborn. I guess we shall see. By the way, there'll be a stream on Saturday. We'll cover that all together. We'll watch that together, and then we'll do a post-fight show right here. So stick around for Saturday. I don't know. Like, it's so weird, right? He's lost, I believe this is correct, he's lost 3 of his last 4, but one of them was the DDP fight. Okay, the one win he has was the KO of Poatan. That's pretty impressive. The other one before that was the loss to Poatan himself, which they avenged. And then the other one was to Sean Strickland. Now, that was a bad one. So it's like, okay, that was a bad performance. But the first loss to Poatan wasn't a bad performance. The loss to DDP, kind of a changing of the guard moment, but he didn't look bad. He obviously looked really good in the end, beating Poatan. So it's not clear to me it's clear to me he's not the best in the weight class anymore, which is what I said before that. But it's not clear to me exactly if he's done. However, it's a question of like what he wants and the utility to the UFC. Right now, you've got him, 35 years of age, give or take, I think. Imavov is 28. So you're getting young versus old here. You're getting something of a generational push. I know Imavov's been around for a while, but if he's 28, he's just now entering his physical prime. I think they're kind of waiting to see, okay, let's see what we got here with him. It's a question of like, if Izzy loses, does he want to stay around for fights like that? Does he, you know what I mean? Like, what does he want? Because you can always go the Jim Miller route. Jim Miller's not trying to fight any of the top guys. He's not trying to headline any of the fight nights. He's not trying to be on anybody's pay-per-view. He's just trying to take a fight against somebody who's commensurately talented. UFC tries to match him up in a way where they can test this guy, test that guy, see what happens. They're not trying to build a future around Jim Miller, but he's got a future as long as he's willing to help them test the other ones. You can do that forever. I don't think Izzy wants to do that necessarily, but I guess I would say if he gets viciously KO'd, that's a different question. But if he were to lose like a really close, competitive, fun decision, I don't think he hangs it up. I really don't. It's just hard to say. It's just very, very hard to say with him. All right. Conor is the victim of his own success, this person writes. UFC will do everything they can to prevent him from fighting in any other promotion because he is a golden goose that will elevate that promotion too much. That's partly right, I think. Not quite. Even as just a promoter, he does wonders for BKFC. I'd agree with that. UFC doesn't want to deal with him anymore, but at the same time, they will release him only if he goes to prison for something, although even then, maybe not. Do you agree? Yeah, probably. It's the same thing for UFC as co-promoting with someone. Yeah, I think that's right. I don't know if I'd call Conor McGregor a victim of anything. I think that's a little bit overstated, although I know what you mean. He has 2 fights left on his deal? I don't know how many fights he has left in his career either, but if you let him go, whatever promotion he fights for next, it's going to be a very big fight, right? It's going to be a very big fight. And I think what they're hoping for is that they can keep him for whatever is left of what he's got that's relevant. And then by the time he goes to another place, it will be big, but it will be big in a sort of a secondary sense, which it still would be now, but it definitely would be under those considerations. Like use up whatever is relevant of him that's left and then, cut him loose. Although they may not even do that. Like they may offer him another, 6-fight, 9-fight deal. So he can't go anywhere else, and he's forever. I mean, I doubt that he does that, but you get the idea. Like, there's ways that could happen. I think he's looking to go the route of the influencer boxing, which is lucrative and relative to fighting fucking Islam Makhachev. It's a lot easier to do. But yeah, dude, UFC. I don't know what they're. No, we do know what they're. I mean, I don't know if they have an internal mission statement that they haven't released, but based on what they do, that's the only thing I can judge them off of is what they do. The only criteria they have for anything is to what extent in the current sort of cultural and economic environment, to what extent does this harm what we do in any kind of substantive way. And if it doesn't, and then they can aid that by not even acknowledging it to a degree, then they'll just let it rock. It's only if it's something that is truly existential, truly radioactive, where their business is affected. Short of that, there is no bottom. There is no bottom. There is nothing that they won't allow. Again, I don't know if they have an internal guideline that contradicts that, but just based on what the people who are in charge say and do, I am inferring that there is essentially no bottom other than Chernobyl. That's it. It has to be Chernobyl bad for them to do anything. Short of that, they don't really care. But yes, letting him go somewhere else. Not that the PFL would pick him up necessarily. I think he'd probably just stick with BKFC. And that's a semi-separate business from UFC. But yes, I think that they are not going to allow that unless they've knocked him down a couple of pegs in terms of whatever relevancy he has left. Is Paul Hughes' performance against Usman a sign that coaches are figuring out how to counter elite Russian wrestling? It's a sign that Paul Hughes has figured out how to handle much of Usman's wrestling. There isn't there are, like in boxing, there's a Cuban style, there's a Russian style, or Eastern European style anyway. There is, and a Russian style too. There's an American style. There's lots of different styles. That's like that in wrestling too. There can be different techniques. And again, the 2-on-1 that you get, one hand on the wrist, one hand on the upper arm, it's called a Russian. It's a Russian tie. That's literally what it's called. But so yes, there are absolutely Russian wrestling styles, but what I would just say is that the level of wrestling, defensive wrestling in particular, is beginning to level up to such a point that the Dagestani guys are not having the same kinds of advantages that they enjoyed maybe even just a few years ago. That's the takeaway for me, is that these and by the way, Paul Hughes is really good. So these elite guys are getting better about both preparing for their opponent, doing things that mitigate the wrestling more generally, and then when it comes to just the wrestling itself, they've just gotten better. It's not that they've figured out there's all these keys to this style, and for this style, which you can plug into every single guy, they've got an answer for it. I just think it's, generally speaking, they have the Dagestani guys came. And to me, you're asking what have they brought? They brought a style of wrestling that incorporated both freestyle and judo, where you have trips, throws, double leg singles. It's a constant mix between them. And then they were very good about dynamic pins and rides that allowed for ground and pound. That's really what they do. But if you look at Usman, he's not that necessarily good at it. I mean, there's also a set of for submissions. He is very good at it, but in terms of what he could get on Paul Hughes, he couldn't really get much going. He was able to get to the back with a tight waist for a little bit. He got on top in the 4th round, but it wasn't a super dynamic performance in terms of the wrestling itself. A lot of it was shut down. The majority of the takedowns were shut down. So that's the broader overview. It's the combination of sort of traditional leg attacks and hip attacks with trips and throws designed to elicit pins, rides that enable ground and pound and subs. That's the whole. I mean, Khabib is sort of like the apex example of that. But you do have to allow for these differences in style, these differences in approaches, these differences in use cases. They don't use them for the same things in all cases. So, yeah. Can you lay out the rest of Islam's career for him to be considered top 5 GOATs? He might have to go up a weight class to be top 5. So what are we talking about? We're talking about Jones, GSP, DJ, depending on how you want to go, Aldo. You got to put yourself in that one. Yeah, dude, you probably have to go up a weight class. Not necessarily, but you probably do. You would if you capture another weight class title, that might do it by itself. If not, if he just stays at 55, definitely going to have to break the record for title. I know he already broke the record for title defenses, but I mean, really shatter it. You're talking about his next 5. Oh yeah, the rest of his career. Yeah, something like that. Something extraordinary. What he's done now is amazing and elite and extremely impressive, but to be like historically special, we're not quite there. I mean, it is special in a certain way. You're talking about for top 5, like one of the 5 best guys to ever do it. We're not quite there. We're not quite there. I don't know if the simple accumulation of 2 or 3 more wins, irrespective of weight class, is enough. It depends, I think. But if he were to get like 6 title defenses at lightweight and or a 170 weight class title, I think that would probably secure it. Yeah. But if he loses his next fight, well, a different conversation. Luke, you mentioned on Monday's MK that Scott Coker tried to F with you during the early MK days. Can you elaborate? He didn't like it when I was very truthful about Bellator. I'll just leave it at that. He didn't like that. But you'll notice I didn't stop. So, not going to get me to not tell the truth. People, I tell you what, as long as I've been in MMA, people have tried. People have tried. And they've definitely fucked with my career. To a degree, they've damaged it. I'm not saying Scott did, but, others, certainly. But from my cold, dead hands, bitches. From my cold, dead hands. More likely fighter to get an explosive finish, submission or KO in Adesanya versus Imavov. Ooh. Explosive finish, sub or KO. I'd probably still go Izzy. I think that one probably goes to a decision anyway, so I don't think it's likely in either case. Imavov he gets better as time goes on, so maybe early he could get finished with something, but or maybe Izzy, who kind of showed like a lack of composure late against DDP. Maybe it's possible, but I tend to think I'll say this. I think the likeliest possibility is that it goes to a decision. In a magical world where they were the same size, would Khabib gas out and end up getting handled by Merab? How does that mythical fight? I don't think so. I mean, the answer is always, Merab's, dismiss Merab at your own peril. So, okay. But I think the difference is, and I've said this before, like you have to do something to deter him. And Umar was playing a little bit too much of the preventative game. And again, I would say also that the takedown defense, I've said it many times, more recently after the last fight of Merab, was exceptional, like truly exceptional. Very, like, that's the most technical thing that he does, in my opinion, is his takedown defense. Like, that's like outrageously good. So that would be a problem, I think, for Khabib. But Khabib's style is dogged and mean and can chain stuff together. And then once he gets you down, yes, some guys get up, it's true, but he's really good about, for the most part, running you. Like, Khabib's just really, really good about capturing a leg, running you off balance, tripping it out, getting you to plant your hands on the mat, using that to either take the back or break someone down to a post or to a side. Or, you know what I mean? Like, he just had such an overwhelming systemic approach to everything that was really rooted in some ways basics, but like very, very, very. I mean, you go. It's on BJJ Fanatics. If you've never seen Khabib talk about like his style of wrestling for the cage, go and talk about it. He has this whole thing, and this is, I mean, you can see it on the tape, but like when he makes it clear when verbally, it's important. He discusses how important it is to just, if you grab a single leg, you've got to run them into a place where they're balancing on it and bouncing. And he talks about how so many guys grab a single leg against the fence and then they try to maneuver them with the single leg, but it's not very effective. Like, you got to just run their body to a place where they're balancing and then go for stuff like that. That's why he had high success rate, because he seemed to really understand what is the central battle in every basic position. What is the objective here? What am I trying to, where am I at? What am I trying to get to? And what condition do I need to apply to make that possible? And he had that rooted throughout the entirety of his grappling game. I just don't think there's anybody like that, even especially Umar. I don't think he's quite like that. So, Merab is tough, bro. Merab is going to, I didn't think he was going to get past Umar, and he did. Merab is tough. He's real tough. But I do think that there is something to be said for the comprehensive way in which Khabib, and also, like, the thing about like Merab can get you down, but he's not that great at holding you down. He's not that great. Like, he's just great about like getting you down and doing a little bit of damage and then getting you down again and getting you down again and over and over and over and over. Like, you're giving Khabib a lot of options in a magical world where they're the same size. You're giving Khabib a lot of options. If you are Imavov's coaches, what kind of game plan / style of fight do you see being successful versus Izzy? I really don't think it's that difficult to figure out. Let me pull up his numbers if I can. Nassourdine Imavov. Let's see what we got here. So I would say he's coming off that Brendan Allen win where he kind of overran him there a little bit. And, I forgot he beat Jared. Dude, he knocked out Jared Cannonier. I forgot about that. That's interesting. And then he has the Roman Dolidze win too. Takedowns aren't necessarily a big part of what he does. He does try them, and he did get a couple against Jared Cannonier should he need them. But I would say in general, the pressure boxing is really going to be everything. Izzy is like, just ask yourself, okay. One second. A visitor just put this underneath my door. Not bad, right? Very nice. All right. Think about someone who's done well against Izzy. What did they do? Let's pick a fight. One of the first ones that I think is kind of important to think about is the Jan Blachowicz fight. And what Jan Blachowicz did, 5-round fight, like this one. What Jan Blachowicz did was he checked all the leg kicks initially. He checked all the leg kicks, or a lot of them anyway, en route to kind of pressuring, forcing Izzy to get closer to him, and he himself too closer to Izzy, so they would exchange in boxing range. And there, what you'd begin to see is a lot of Izzy putting his hips out in front, pulling his head back, and then what did Blachowicz do? Take down, right? If you're if your head is behind your hips, this is a great way to evade, especially if you have space behind you, but it brings your hips literally forward to the opponent. And so that makes you much easier to be taken down. I don't know if he's going to marry the takedown there. I don't know if he's going to try. I don't really know how that's going to go, but I think that's the game plan. If you can pressure him so that you don't even have to fight that range. But I think central to any game plan that's successful against Izzy, you have to have some kind of answer for both kicking range and then the leg kicks more generally. If you don't really have an answer for that, it's not that you can't win. Of course you can, but it does make it a lot harder because he's able to steal rounds that way. He's able to like slow guys down that way. He's able to maintain range that way. He just kind of peppers and peppers and peppers, and then he's off at an angle, and he's throwing and he's throwing and he's throwing, and he's off at an angle. And he throws and it misses, and he escapes. And then he starts the whole cycle back again. And then you look at the end of the round, you're like, how did he get 10 or 15 leg kicks? When did that happen? You know, but it's the truth. Like, he'll beat guys up doing that, and he just kind of will. It's very sneaky. It's super, super sneaky. If you're going to operate at a range where he can get off with that comfortably, then you're going to have problems. You have to take that away. If you don't take that away, there's really no way to win. Okay, that's a strong way to put it, but you know, it substantially reduces the likelihood that you can win. So that's the issue. I mean, I'm no expert. These are just my opinions, but I've watched a shit ton of tape on Izzy. I've talked to him about it personally, about different things in his game, both on and off camera. I've talked to some of his coaches about it. I feel like, and not that I have like the world's greatest sense, but I can very confidently say if you don't have an answer for the leg kicking, there's various answers, but if you don't have an answer for the leg kicking, the difficulty in beating him becomes much, much greater. You take that away, you got a completely different ball game. Let me I got a new computer. I got a new MacBook Pro. You know what? The only reason I got it too is not because I think Macs are better than PCs. I really don't. That's not what I think at all. But I taught myself how to use Final Cut Pro, and I just don't want to learn DaVinci Resolve or Adobe, and so I just fucking bought a MacBook. Plus, it's a little simpler, but you know, all right, you get the idea. Here we go. LT, while not saying GFL has a chance at all of succeeding to anywhere near on par with UFC, could they at least garner an actual fan base? They do have fighters that some of the public are interested in, whereas it doesn't feel at all like PFL has any interest in attracting MMA fans to their product, as they do the very least they can do to promote anything. So that's an interesting question. I kind of made a video about this yesterday. Not exactly about what you're asking about, but basically. And the basic answer is, it's very, very easy to look at the decisions of a GFL or a PFL, less so PFL, but certainly a GFL, and be like, this is just like, what are y'all doing? Like, of course you're not going to win anything, like compete with UFC doing this dumbass shit. Like, why are you doing it? And then when you begin to realize is, yes, do they make a series of bad calls that just don't make sense no matter what? Yes, there absolutely is a true thing to be said about that. But on the other hand, the reality is you have to go to we're going to have a team system and a draft and all this nonsense, because the portion that you need to put on to be successful is walled off from you. You have to be able to put on high level, relevant, ranked MMA. That there's really no other way to make money at that level of the game. You can do regional MMA, and that's a completely different ball game. But if you're going to do like the UFC level, that you have to do that. And if you don't do that, as I tried to explain, people are very resistant to this idea, but it's the reality. As long as that is the case, if you can't meaningfully cross rosters, you cannot succeed. It's as simple as that. That is it. That there's no other way to do it. So that's why you see them, like, because they cannot do that, the UFC will not play ball with them. That's why you see, let's do a draft. Let's do a team concept. Let's do, everyone's fucking, each other with KY jelly and chainsaws. Like, there's nothing that you can't go the direction you need. So you might as well just go with some other nonsense. That's what you end up getting. That's why it's there. What you're asking is, can they develop a fan base? I tend to think, yeah, probably on some level, signing a bunch of guys and ladies to a degree, who fought in major promotions, and especially in UFC. Some of them are legendary names. I don't know if they should be fighting, but they are legendary names. Some of that fandom will die hard, but a lot of it is much more dead than you might imagine. It is hard to maintain a relevant fan base outside of the UFC in terms of being a real promotional ticket. And when I say outside of the UFC, I don't just mean like people who've never fought there, but like you got run through the cycle and you decline in your past, like a Woodley or a Rockhold or something, guys who were at their peak very, 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 very good. And they probably still do have some extent of a fan base, but I don't know if it's the kind that can actually be big enough for GFL to allow them to turn any kind of profit. That's really the issue, right? It's not like they have no fan base, but I don't know that at this stage there's enough to make it work. The question that the fan base has to ask itself, and I could not answer this for them. They can only answer it for themselves. But the reality is you can't have it both ways. A lot of people tell me as a fan, and I understand this argument very much, that they, as a fan, I'm not thinking about this, I'm not thinking about that. I'm just thinking what's easy for me as a fan, which as a customer is not unfair. What's easiest for me? It's easiest when all the best are in one promotion, and that's what I want. Okay. If that's what you want, and that is not an unreasonable thing. It's a debate you have to have, but it's not an unfair position, depending on what else you can say. But if you are going to have that position, you must declare also that you are not interested at all in anything but UFC and then regional MMA, because the entire rest of what could be potentially available in a different scenario, you are writing off completely. You cannot have a bunch of different high-level promotions as well as a monopoly that has 90% or more of the market. Like, you just can't have that. You have to pick one. And so I really find it, to me, it's like, I don't mind beating up on GFL. I really don't. But to me, it's like weird and almost distasteful that, there's the people, they get killed, and it's like, oh, why can't these geniuses, these fucking morons, figure this out? There's nothing to figure out. They're just trying to do a magic trick to make it work. But that's because, again, as I've discussed it, that's all that's available to them. There is no meaningful way to make their product work, so they have to resort to whatever is left, which is nonsense. So, I just think it's very unfair to ask of them, why can't you guys get your shit together? They cannot get their shit together because the market will not let them. So they resort to this shit because what else is there? Someone's asking about Aaron Pico. What should he do? I mean, it really depends what he wants. I would love to see him at UFC. And based on what Dana White said about the interest between Mick Maynard and Sean Shelby, I suspect that is not too far away. How would he do against the top 15? I don't think he would be a champion there, especially when Ilia Topuria lives, but I think he wins some of them, right? It's like Michael Chandler. When Michael Chandler came over, I didn't think he was the best guy at lightweight, but I thought, he's going to beat a couple of these guys. And sure enough, he beat Hooker, which, by the way, turned out to be a win that has aged well. And obviously, Tony Ferguson doesn't mean quite the same thing, but he gave us, amazing fights even when he lost against folks like Charles Oliveira and Dustin Poirier and whatnot. So I think he'd be something like that, maybe a little bit better. I don't think he'd be champion, but I think he's going to give a lot of top guys tough fights. He's going to beat some of them. And the point is he a great? Same thing with Justin Gaethje when he came from World Series of Fighting. I didn't think he was the best lightweight, but I was like, dude, get that guy over here now. Like, just the amount of fun you're going to have with someone like that on the roster, do it. If DDP defends against Sean, should he be the one challenging the winner of Alex versus Ankalaev? DDP would be a more exciting contender at 205 than anyone in its top 5. If DDP wins against Sean, okay, so that's UFC 312. Should he be the one challenging the winner of Alex Ankalaev? That's a tough one. I'm busy. Chica? No mas. I'm busy. Yeah, I know. Baby girl, I'm working. Chica, go talk to Geralda. De malas. Okay. Sorry. I think a DDP fight against the winner of Ankalaev and Poatan would be great. I have no problem with it. Zero. None. However, it's a little too premature. If Imavov looks amazing, I don't know how. I'm not saying he deserves a title shot, but that would be 4 in a row again now, and then culminating against the win over a former champion. That's a big deal. You've also got Khamzat kind of waiting out there, and if DDP wins, I'm like, dude, someone's got to go face that guy. So it's not like I think that there is like that's a bad fight or the UFC shouldn't make it. But dude, when Khamzat's waiting, you got Imavov, maybe we'll see, or maybe Izzy jumps back into the front of the line again, which is possible as well. You just got a lot of unfinished business. It's just unfinished business. I'm not saying that the Carlos Ulberg, showdown is the one that I'm the most excited about, but he might have earned it depending on how things go. Jan Blachowicz kind of stuff. Well, that's a little that's a little bit past, but you get the point I'm trying to make. Like there's just too much traffic at 185 right now. Someone's asking thoughts on Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. Fucking love it. Fucking love it. Going to be a grappling contest extraordinaire. And, Chase has really filled out. He's really become, he's still a bit of a bendy kind of lanky grappler, but I think he's much more physical than he once was. He's very technical on the ground. I think he's really worked on his stand-up. He's worked on his defense a lot. He's worked on his strength and conditioning a lot. He's a formidable guy. But Jim Miller, folks forget Jim Miller wrestled at VTech, man. Virginia Tech. He was great. That's D1, bro. And of course, black belt and everything else. I love that fight. And that to me is so great. Young, old, two guys who are absolute studs on the ground. Fantastic matchmaking. Superb. A++. Dream fight in each division. If you could match up 2 fighters in their prime. Jesus, that's a tough one. So, let me update everybody. And in fact, to prove it to you. Oh, wait, I'm getting updates from folks. Wow. Ooh. Apparently Dana White, I'm texting somebody. Where is this from? Apparently Dana White not too happy with Bryce Mitchell. Well, I'm glad to see there's a bottom. Glad to see that there's a bottom. Okay. Someone asked 2 weeks ago for my favorite fight in every division. So excuse me. No. That's not quite right. They asked for what are the best fights per division. And I have been working on that all week. It's not done, but the thumbnail is done to prove to you that I'm doing it. There it is. There is the thumbnail for it. So we are working on that. That is actually the list is compiled. It's just about getting all the assets that go along with it. So I have done that. I have actually done the work for it. That will be my goal is tomorrow. I don't know if it's going to be ready, but I'm trying. But maybe I can do this one too. Dream fight in each division, and you could match up 2 fighters in their prime. I could just go real quickly through the UFC. I mean, I'll tell you this much. I would love to see Paul Hughes, first of all, rematch Usman Nurmagomedov, but dude, any of those motherfuckers in the top 5, any of them. Like that would be sick. All right, for flyweight, you know what I'm going to say? Here, okay, let me just go through and say what I want to see. I'm not going to stop division by division, but I'll get kind of close. I'll tell you what I want to see. How about Pantoja versus Merab Dvalishvili? Champ fight. I'm not saying it's the best champ fight you can make, or certainly not the promotionally biggest, but I think it'd be fucking awesome. You could do Aaron Pico versus Ilia Topuria. That'd be a bomb. You could do Islam Makhachev, Max Holloway. I'd be sized for that. But of course, you could do Max Holloway a few different directions. Shavkat versus Bilal is actually the one that I want to see. So that one's kind of filled. At middleweight, yeah, it's going to be Khamzat versus either Sean or DDP is the one that I want to see. Poetan, let's do 205. It's so nubs. Yeah, Ankalaev, and then heavyweight. What I mean, come on, it's John versus Tom. That's it. That's the whole thing. That's the whole game. But maybe if I could do like two guys all time in their prime, what would I look like? I might have to make a video for that one. The number of ranked UFC lightweights Usman and Paul Hughes can beat. Okay, well, let's look at the list, shall we? Oops, wrong one. Here we go. Lightweight. So let's see. I definitely think they beat Benoit Saint Denis. Grant Dawson's a tough customer, but I definitely think I think they could probably beat him. Turner's tough, but he can give it up. Patty, I don't know. Fazeev, Moicano, Dariush. Dariush, I think, is maybe. Chandler definitely at 7. Hooker's a possibility. Holloway at 5 even because of the size issue. It's kind of funny. Some of these guys 10 to 13 are kind of tough. Limited but tough. But I don't think that I don't think that either beats Armin, and I don't know about Charles either. Justin's I think a maybe. Dustin's I think a maybe not. These are maybes. But some of these other ones, Max, Hooker, and Chandler, I think they could absolutely beat either of those guys. Yeah. Any of those guys, I should say. Yep. What is this question? Look, if you can focus on just 5 things in your entire life, what would they be? And some tips to how you would handle them with knowledge you have now. Jesus, fuck. I'm not sure how to answer that one. 5 things. Physical health is critical. Financial health is to some degree critical. Romantic life and making that real is extremely important. Some level of professional satisfaction. I don't think you have to climb the ladder, but you should be happy with what you're doing on a basic level. And then 5 for me is going to be the rest of my family, taking care of my kid and spending time with them and, that sort of a thing. What was the second part of it? Tips on how you would handle them. Buddy, people ask me this because that's the nature of what we do here. Sorry, I got something in my eye. To answer questions, and I try my best to think through them as, but the reality is, man, I don't have any special wisdom about any of this shit. I'm trying to live this just like you guys are. I don't know what the fuck to do about 90% of the stuff that comes my way. I just try to listen to, again, guys, I go back to it. It's the simple advice that's really the best. It's making good, small decisions day after day after day after day after day. It's not trying to have one big decision, although those can be critical as well, or trying to have this one, this year is going to be the best year of my life. I mean, there's something to be said for working hard and achieving goals. Please, I understand that, but at the same time, it's more just about really basic but daily maintenance of good habits, maintaining values through it, and then acting upon them. The best, there's some people that are lucky. Some people are born pro athletes. Some people are born, very, very wealthy. And these are very, very lucky people. But for the rest of us, that's not, we don't get to do that. So we have to think about something else. The maintenance, the small maintenance of values, the small maintenance of your day over the course of 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, plays an enormous role, and he makes an enormous difference. How you handle the various paths by which you have to navigate to maintain all the things that I mentioned, your guess is probably as good as mine. But what I do know is, for having just seen it at this point, make small but good, simple decisions every day that are in line with your values. Make clear what your values are. And I'm not going to say everything takes care of itself. That's not really true, but much of it will be easier for you to achieve and handle or understand. I firmly believe that. All right, where's this Dana White quote from? It was from Dana at the Power Slap presser. Okay. All right, well, that's something. As you can imagine, my mentions are filled with Nazis. It's fun. Here we go. Yeah. Here. Let's see if I can play it for you.
Let me get some fucking dumb shit out of the way first here. I'm out here, have fun doing power slap tonight. And I'm sure you guys heard what Bryce Mitchell said. If you haven't, said some probably, I've heard a lot of dumb, ignorant shit in my day. But this one's probably the worst. When you talk about Hitler, he's responsible for the death of 6 million Jews, and he tried to completely eliminate a race of people. World War II was the deadliest war in history. 15 million military deaths, 45 million civilians, and 25 million soldiers were killed in World War II. Second of all, Hitler is one of the most disgusting and evil human beings to ever walk the face of the earth.
It's true,
that even tries to take an opposing position is a moron. That's the problem with the internet and social media. You provide a platform for a lot of dumb, ignorant people. We've obviously reached out to Bryce, and when we read what he said and let him know how we feel about it, I don't even, we're beyond disgusted. So for those of you that don't know what's going on, good, you're lucky. For those of you that do, that's what I have to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, they're not going to do shit to him. They're not going to do shit to him, but at least they said something. At least they said something. A lot of people want to make this out to be a free speech issue, which on some level, any version of speech is a free speech issue, right? Anytime anybody is talking, some question about to what extent what is allowed and what is not is always going to be relevant. But you have to understand there's an enormous amount of bad faith interpretation about this whole thing. And what people are doing, and these are weasels that do this all the time, what they want to do is they want to make every line in the sand a function of to what extent someone is being censorious rather than what exactly are you saying? Not whether or not to what extent this is allowed, to what extent this is triggering to others, to what extent this is inflammatory. No. Stop for a second. Quit making this being about a free speech debate, which anyone can say whatever they want, which is really not even what free speech is, but just for the sake of the argument, let's just imagine that's what it is. But forget about what we are permitting to be uttered in public. What are you saying? Tell me what you are defending. And what I've noticed is that a lot of people want to say the dumbest, most heinous shit imaginable. And then when called upon it, they want to turn the debate into a question of like automatic censorship. I should be allowed to say what I want. I'm not even taking away the right to say what you want to say. I just want everyone to be clear. There are people who hide behind the emptiness of what they actually can defend with this screen of, ooh, don't challenge my way to say it, because what they want you to infer is that in challenging their right to say it, such that anyone does, it is a way to silence the truth, right? That because they are putting a lid on top of it, whatever that may be in all various contexts of it, that's a tacit admission that they don't want that to get out, because once people got that out, they would change their mind because it's so full of evidentiary weight, when in reality it's the exact opposite. They pull that card that you are censoring me, you're trying to, at a bare minimum, you are trying to censor me, because at the end of the day, what they are actually trying to say, what they are actually believing, what they actually want the world to accept is empty in every possible fucking way. There's nothing to it. You can if you draw a line in the sand and make every awful thing you say a function of a free speech debate, this is a way to never ever have to actually get to the brass tacks of the situation, which is, what is it you believe? What is it at the heart of the matter, whatever the situation may be? What is it you actually believe? If I remove this crusade against censorship, let's remove that for a second. Now let's just defend what is on the table. And these are always the dumbest, most racist, most insanely stupid, least read fucking morons imaginable. They can only ever invoke North Korean, imagine fever dream censorship as a way to cloak what they are actually saying and the emptiness that comes with it. And I hope everyone, irrespective of this situation, completely irrespective of this situation, anytime you see someone who consistently tries to hide behind the debate of censoriousness, understand what's happening. They cannot defend what they want to actually say. They cannot do it. And if they try, it's almost always bad faith, complete bullshit. They don't care if they lie. They lie with impunity. They lie to your face. They lie on print. They lie in videos. They lie in conversations. They'll just lie all the time. They have no real fealty to it. Don't give in to fucking people like that. Don't do it. Don't do it. I mean, it's an overwhelming amount now, but I hope everyone can see the difference. I'm happy to let people say what they want to say, but you really have to defend it with evidence and weight. And not like, oh, I saw some YouTube videos, and I fucking read about it. I can find anything. Well, forget it. I'm going to skip that part. But anyway, I hope everyone can see the game that people play out there. And you'll see it in my mentions too. Oh, what? It's free speech. It's free speech. I'm not calling the fucking police. I'm not calling the police. And UFC is not going to do shit to him. And we all knew UFC wasn't going to do shit to him anyway. I understand that. I understand that. I'm asking you to defend the weight of it. And there's Nazis in the because Twitter has been unleashed into a 4chan site with virtually no censorship whatsoever. And when I say that, I mean not even of murders, stabbings. I see shootings on there every fucking day. If you're on long enough, certainly. And I'm not talking about like the plane accident, which was tragic. I'm talking about, just sort of random street violence. There's Nazis that claim they can defend it, but like anybody who has above room temperature IQ knows that this is all nonsensical. This is just it's a confluence of factors, but I don't even know exactly what else I want to say about this. I just hope everyone can appreciate the game that the dumbest people on the internet want to play with you. They want to hide behind what they want. They want you to look at it's just people that game the referees, right? As you've seen teams and sports teams where they game the referees. They're just trying to game the referee. You see, anytime I say anything, they try to it's the censorship police. Here they come. They want to take away my right to do it. And they constantly throw sand in everyone's face in the debate, doing that as a way to never, ever have to really get to the brass tacks of the completely evidentiary free worldview that they want to believe is true and couldn't argue for if their life depended on it. And that's the reality. That's the whole reality. They want to play that game. Here's my censorship card, and now I never ever have to defend the weight of what I imagine to be true. All right. With that in mind, let's get to the paid portion. Yeah. Okay. Welcome to the party, Fox. Katie? I don't know what the fuck that is. Jackson says, can you touch on the declining birth rate? Oh, fuck. More people unmarried living at home up to 30, especially men, non-affordable housing, and the huge political divide between young men and women. Surely troubling signs. Rip Barbas. Yes, indeed, Rip Barbas. Rest in peace to him. This is not something I have read a great degree of. I've certainly read some pieces of this, in particular on two sides of it. One, the living at home longer. I don't think that is a good thing, although I will say, having now been exposed, and that's all it is, I've been exposed to culture in Latin America. I was talking to Chris Algieri. Chris Algieri fought, Errol Spence, Manny Pacquiao, and he was saying before he fought Manny Pacquiao, they played up the fact that he was living in his parents' basement. And the HBO story was boxer who's living at home with his parents, is now fighting Manny Pacquiao for a world title. And he was like, I was living at home because my parents are Italian and Argentinian. And in Latin American culture, like, people just live at home. Dude, the guys I know, my in-laws in Colombia, they live at home until they get married and then they leave. Like well into their 20s and 30s. They live at home until they get married and then they go. It's crazy. Now, that's a different thing than we have to live with mom and dad because the entire world is unaffordable. That's a completely different scenario. I'm simply saying spending some time with family, even into your 20s, is considered disreputable in this culture, but there are many cultures where it is not. And I think people who might be struggling at least should take some solace in that. However, that's not really the central problem. The central problem is they would like to go and leave and they cannot because housing is unaffordable, because rent is unaffordable, because cars are unaffordable. This is a much bigger problem that I don't really have a very simple answer for you. You're asking about the declining birth rate as well. I mean, that's partly a function of, I think, male isolation. Like, I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to the scholarship on this about how much more higher education is just not merely catering to women. I don't mean through classes. I don't mean that at all. I mean quite the opposite. Like, young men are just not attending college like they did when I was, 18 years old. There's a significant drop off. And of course, the response is not everybody has to go to, a liberal arts institution to learn about Socrates. This is true. Not everyone does. And in fact, in parts of Europe where they have a much more and greater appreciation for trade school, you can pick a trade pretty early on, go get it, and then you can live a very, very comfortable, middle-class, successful life. Like, that's a real thing that I think we should also embrace. But again, it gets back to not is there a charming part to this, but rather what is at the root of the fact that there's a lot of young men disconnected from higher education. That's bad for them, and that's bad for society, right? This is quite bad. Again, not for every case, but as a general rule, this decline is not a function of a more enlightened approach. You've got a lot of young men living at home because they cannot attain status, and because they cannot attain status, they feel like they cannot have a romantic partner. And when they cannot have a romantic partner, I mean, you just had this compounding problem all the way down. Like, that's serious. It's really, 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 really bad for society. The answer is we have to, beyond what any individual actor does to improve their material conditions, we have to rethink higher education. We have to engage with young men where they are. We have to show them, we have to take their considerations and their needs, I think, as it relates to these particular problems, very seriously. I also think young men are in desperate need of fucking better role models. I think they're in desperate need of a better understanding about how life actually works and like what are the true ingredients. Dude, like, in many ways, what I'm about to tell you is the dumbest and most profound thing I can tell you. I mean it sincerely. It's why, like, super rich people, ultra rich power is corrupting, because it's very difficult to have any meaningful personal interaction with somebody because they're always going to want something from you. So that's a little bit different. But like, why do rich people still are depressed and kill themselves? Like, I would love to have more financial security. I'm sure we all would. But the reality is, if you take care of your sleep and you take care of your diet and you are reasonably happy at work, and you put in the effort to make yourself attractive to a partner, and you don't have the seething disdain for the opposite sex, and you take care of your marriage, and you take care of your family, like, just doing the simple things over a long period of life, that's all. That's life. That's the best of life. That's it. That's the best of life. It's not achieving like some online acclaim. It's not, it's not the adoration of, everyone in your peer group or something. I mean, some of these things can be attained in more narrow contexts for more noble purposes, but it's just the simple life, living healthy, investing in yourself and investing in a romantic partner, whatever that means for you, and taking care of that, and finding simple joys and leaning into your hobbies, and that's everything. That's life. And I think people try to make it be so much grand. I did it too. I'm the most guilty guy who did that. About it has to be achieved on this like rat race sense of scale, and like what's at the top, and it has to be these grand ambitions fulfilled. And it's like, dude, at the end of the day, that stuff doesn't ever actually make me and most people all that happy. It is the simple life That is what makes you happy. It is the simple things. And that can be hard to maintain over the course of your life, right? Not easy. Like, you're going to make mistakes. They're going to make mistakes. Bad things happen to good people. Like, I get it, but I'm just trying to impart the sense of, you're asking about birth rates and whatnot, but I'm trying to speak to disaffected young men. I want you to hear me very clearly, and anybody disaffected, but who is young enough to do something about it. All you really need is a very simple life to be profoundly happy. That's it. That's all I'm trying to tell you. Having a romantic partner, having an active sex life, having somebody you can talk to, having some friends, having a social life. These are very difficult things to obtain in the modern world, and I sympathize with people who struggle with it. But if there is good news I can deliver to you, it is absolutely the case that the simple life is the happiest one for the vast majority of people. And I hope that people can find, especially young men, I hope that they can find reasonable paths to obtain that. Sam, welcome to the party. Jewel says, I'm genuinely sorry to hear about Barbas. He sounded like the best boy. He was, man. He was. Care to share any endearing memories? Fuck, where do I even begin, bro? 13 years. Where do I even begin? Where'd you guys get the name from? It's beard in Spanish, isn't it? Yeah. So the name comes from the fact that he kind of had like a scruffy look when we picked him up from the pound, and I didn't know any Spanish at the time, and I asked my wife, like, how do you say beard in Spanish? And it was Barba, Barba. And then we tried calling him that, and then people were like, is your dog's name Barbara? Like a woman's name? So I just made it Barbas, beards, plural. I don't even know what to say. I have a whole here on my phone. I have pictures of him like in a yeah. This is one of no, I can't show you that one because I got family. This is the day he came home from the hospital. Pobrecito. You can see him sleeping. He's got the thing on his arm. These are not endearing memories. This was him on Thanksgiving. We had to take him on the Amtrak train. See that? Look at that. Yeah, man. Oh, Barbas. Fuck, man. But let me go back to like way when we first got him. I mean, look, here's how old Barbas was, man. This is me. Look at my hair, bro. I haven't always been gray. You know what I mean? I haven't always been gray, but I was that day, man. Or well, I am now. I'm just looking at all these photos, bro. I mean, I don't even know what to say, here, like just stupid shit, riding in the car. Like, dude, that's the stuff that's life, man. That's the stuff that's life. This is yeah, man. I don't even know what to say. Like, look at that face, bro. I could do this all day. We took him places. We had fun. One time he got out and we had to chase him like all over the neighborhood, and it was like silly and nerve-wracking, but he was never in danger. And I don't know, man. It's not. I don't know if I'm ready to think about like one individual thing, but I do feel like, dude, it's the everyday simple life. Telling you, each of those little simple days, simple walks, you know what I mean? Like, it's just but consistently doing over time, it builds this relationship, and like something comes from it. You know what I mean? Like, man, yeah. Books that have given you a better understanding of America. Jesus. I've been reading a couple of books, but I didn't get very far on them on like the robber baron era in the 1920s or post-Reconstruction anyway. Do I have anything all that great? I'm not the guy for this. Team of Rivals is a good book. I'd have to think about that. What do I have in my what do I currently have in my Kindle? Do I have anything in the Kindle that's like super helpful in that regard? Not really. I'd have to think. I haven't read a American history book in quite some time. I've read books. It's not exactly what you're asking either. I'd have to think about that. Specifically related to the topic, I don't know. I mean, I've read books about how the filibuster was developed. Is that like something you'd be interested in? I don't know if you would, a book on the life of James Calhoun, who is a relevant figure in American political history, although a scoundrel, to be clear. These are all really relevant, but they're very micro. They're not like sweeping in the kind of vision I think you might be talking about. Rick, and thoughts on Fauci being pardoned? I mean, they're trying to prevent him from being from lawfare being slung his way. I mean, that one I don't think is great. I think I'm more bothered by the fact that that former President Biden pardoned his own family. Didn't pardon himself, but definitely pardoned his own family. That's pretty fucking gross, right? But do I trust the current government to prosecute any kind of case of malfeasance or wrongdoing correctly or thoroughly or in any kind of way objectively? I absolutely fucking do not. Diaronomer, volcanic hot take. Provided that you have sufficient defensive driving capabilities, and your reflexes are very good, texting and driving is generally okay. Most just don't meet the two criteria. Yeah, that's a volcanic hot take because it's real fucking dumb. What you're arguing for is, can you get away with it? Can you get away with it? Yeah, you can get away with it, but it will catch up to you. Someone. This is what I always tell people about driving. When I try to explain to my daughter about driving too, because anybody who lives in DC will tell you what I'm about to tell you is very correct. Remember, DC is small; it's not a very big city, and there's Maryland to the north and there's Virginia to the south, right? Or that's basically how it works. The Maryland drivers in the city. These are the worst human beings I've ever seen. Just fucking orcs behind the wheel. And I bet you Othello is watching this right now. Othello, tell them in the chat I'm telling them the truth. Tell them in the chat I'm telling the truth. So the point I'm trying to make is everyone thinks it's about what they do. But, dude, it's not about what you do. It's about what the other person does. And even then, some of that you can control. You cannot control all of it, especially with these fucking maniacs from Bowie, Maryland, from fucking Dundalk. I'm talking the absolute worst. What's up, bro? Saul, do you think pre-meth Hitler... Do I think pre-meth Hitler was a good... No, probably not. Probably not, right? Over under the UFC said, they took the over. They said something. I mean, they didn't do shit about it, but they said something. At least they condemned it, right? That's more than... that's more than they did for a lot of things. So at least they were like, Hitler was bad. All right. We you know what? We have. What's the line in the sand? Well, they still employed him, but they definitely said Hitler was bad. Okay. All right. I mean, that's okay. Contract laws change equal other promotions thrive. True. Sam says, what do you make of the news that Lyoto Machida was put into a coma following his loss to Yoel Romero? That was a brutal loss. Remember how he lost? It was with the elbows, and they bounced his, that was the no forgay Jesus. Remember that one? Everyone was the Supreme Court thing had just happened, and then Yoel was like, no forgay Jesus, and then was like, well, did he say no forget Jesus? Or what was it? It was this big thing at the time. It was from that fight, and it was Yoel bouncing the fucking head of Machida off of the floor several times. That is scary as shit. Yeah, I can believe it. And the fact that he got a license after that is insane. How prevalent do you think this is? It's not super prevalent. I mean, I talk to a lot of coaches. That's a rare thing. And is it often kept private to allow athletes to still compete? Yes, although some of that does have to be disclosed to the commission. So it depends. But yeah, it's not super frequent. I can tell you that. It's not unheard of. It's not super frequent. Saludos desde Mexico. What's up, bro? What do you think about the fitness theory on body types, ectomorph, mesomorph? It's complete trash. There you go. Dr. Mike has said it's BS. It was, so when I was in college and lifting, I am telling you, every gym I was in had it was like endomorph, ectomorph, and mesomorph. And like, what body type are you? And you lift according to like the body type, and it's just total bullshit. There's nothing to it whatsoever. Do you know any science reference on it? They thoroughly debunked, and my best advice to you is just to move on from it. There's nothing to it. Nabil says, how do you think about the parasocial relationship with fans? I don't. Do you create a generic fan that you imagine you're talking to? Something like that. I imagine it's weird that thousands of strangers know so much about you. It can be. You know what's been really kind of weird? This didn't happen. I've said this before to you guys. All the way up to the pandemic, and then even after the pandemic, like when we all started going back outside again in DC, I never got recognized in the city. Never. It never happened. Like, it never, ever happened. I could go anywhere I wanted. And then, I mean, you know, a couple of times over the course of like years or something, but it didn't really happen. And now it's like, I'm not going to say every time I leave the house, but it's a lot. It's like, to the point where I can't fucking believe it. I cannot believe it, but it does happen. So I actually just see these people. I just see them on the street. And so I tend not to think of it much beyond that, except to say that, like, if someone sees me in person, you guys know, anybody who's seen me in person who's watching this chat, you know, I try to stop and talk to people. I try to ask everyone their name and whatnot. But guys, combat sports is a disaster. Someone has to be a voice to be like, yo, this shit is super fucked up. I try to just do that. I try to just like breathe that voice into the microphone without really thinking about the consequences of it or who really is receiving it, because I'm just like, it's in accordance with my values. Also, you know, I love the sport of fighting itself, and I try to provide some you know, commentary and analysis of the sport on top. Obviously, that's the primary thing that I do, but like also, you know, it's that. So I don't think of it like, who am I talking to? Who's listening? I think, what do I want to say? And then just say it. What would you like to see next for Beneil Dariush? Some matchup he's happy with. I don't have a great, you know, he's earned, he made weight. It wasn't his fault that everything fell apart. And, you know, Moicano fought Islam. He deserves something nice. Dave says, I'd love to know what you've heard this week from family and friends about the Trump Colombia events. Oh, man. The migrant flight rejection, tariff threat, blah, blah, blah. Dude, okay. And by the way, even if you're an American citizen, flights coming, I'm not sure this is at every airport, but certainly in Miami, if you're coming from Colombia, and you got to imagine there's like a gazillion flights from Colombia coming in, even if you're an American citizen, they're having separate security looks for them, separate security lines. This is well documented. You can look at El Mundo, you can look at Miami Herald. This is well documented. I'm not in any way making this up. Please, by all means, double check this. I don't know how, again, I don't think it's every airport nationwide, but certainly in Miami, this is the case. Where they're just screening people when they get off the flights, and then, you know, they're letting people in, but they're just hassling them, basically, is the way I would put that. Even for people who are, you know, green card holders, or even in certain cases American citizens. So I have family coming up in April, and I'm going to guess that they're going to get through, but they're going to be subjected to this bullshit. So you got to understand something, dude. Like, Colombia is a very conservative country. Like, it's not conservative in the same way that America is. There are some similarities, but there's meaningful differences too, and we can't go into them, but it's generally a pretty conservative country, right? The media is very conservative. My in-laws are what I would call center-right, something like that. Again, and it's not exactly like center-right here, but it's pretty close. The guy who runs Colombia, his name is Gustavo Petro. I'll say it gringo, like Gustavo Petro is his name, okay? It's important because he was a former guerrilla, sort of put it all down and became a politician, and that was a really big thing. He used to be the mayor of Bogota. He is very left-wing, and it was a big deal when he got elected, because this is a country that had Uribe and then Santos and then Duque. These are all right-wing guys. Santos is, again, center-right, but these were all right-wing guys, and then all of a sudden here comes Petro. And Petro is just like Trump. He's a left-wing Trump, but he's like Trump. Do you see the fucking shit he was tweeting? Like, I find the USA boring and blah, 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 and all this shit. So I can just tell you, I don't know how Colombians more generally feel, but I can certainly tell you my in-laws don't like Petro. And they didn't like what was happening, and they didn't like the back and forth. And I'm not suggesting that picking a fight with the USA is a great thing from the Colombian perspective. But like at the same time, Colombia is like the number one fucking ally in South America for the United States. It's just not good for anybody for that country and ours to have strained relationships. It's just bad for everybody, right? It's bad for them. It's bad for us. It's not great. And let me tell you something too, like it's no bullshit. If you go down there, you're asking like, well, what's the Chinese economic influence in places like Colombia? Significant. You can go down there, and this is a small thing. You can go and buy Huawei phones. Huawei sponsors Santa Fe, which is one of the biggest teams in the Colombian domestic soccer league. Like America punting on Colombia, even if Petro is, you know, a mirror version of Trump from the left-hand side, it's just not good for anybody. I was very, very, very happy to see that cooler heads prevailed. They're still fucking with people coming over from flights, but you know, I was very happy that they let this all go. The basic issue was they were bringing people who were illegal immigrants here or overstayed visas or whatever, had some kind of illegal residency status. And they were bringing them over in military planes with like leg irons on them. And then they were looking at their records in Colombia. And these were people in Colombia that had no criminal record, right? They were committing crimes essentially, you know, they had an illegal resident status in the United States. But like when they got off the flight, they were checking them. These were not people that had any criminal record whatsoever. And so Petro's complaint, which is a fair one, don't bring them on military planes and leg irons. And then it led to this whole thing. And then he made it worse. Petro did, by, you know, fucking stoking the flames. And then my in-laws were like, yo, Petro, shut the fuck up, you know. So there's a lot of blame to go around. There is a lot of blame to go around. But I can just tell you this, and I suspect the White House has calculated this as well. Colombian presidents can only serve one term. I believe that's right. There's elections in 2 years. Mark my fucking words. They're not electing another left-wing guy after Petro. Not in this next election. It will 100% go back to the party of Uribe and Duque and you name it. Like guaranteed. He is deeply unpopular there, and he's fucked some shit up. Like I'm not one of these guys that defends Petro. Like he's done some good things, you know. It's true. He's big on the environment. He's big on animal welfare. For example, when I first started going to Bogota years and years ago, people had you could still see people with like horses and donkeys as like a mode of transportation or like carrying shit. And this was like on major highways. And dude, and some of these horses and some of these donkeys were not in great fucking conditions at all, man. Some of them didn't even have shoes on their feet. Petro was the guy as the mayor of Bogota who set up a system to give all of these people, to pay them, to give them money so they could buy a car or a scooter or some kind of mode of transportation to either get to work or haul whatever they needed to haul. And then he created a farm for all of those horses or whatever to go and live on in a humane way for the rest of their life. That's a good thing, man. That's a good thing. It's a small thing, but it's a good thing. But at the same time, when he was the mayor of Bogota, he did a crony fucking deal with one of his buddies to change who collected the trash in Bogota, and it backfired massively, and there was trash piled to the fucking sky for weeks on end until they got it fixed, because the guy who he gave the contract to was a fuck up, but it was one of his boys. This is what I mean. The guy's not great, dude. I'm not a Petro guy by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, there's plenty of blame to go around. Let me just say one more time, it is good that Colombia and the United States have, I think, a positive relationship, and I think keeping that intact is good for both countries. Ray says, Luke, MK needs some diversity hire, and I'm happy to join as an extra. Okay. Did you see Trump press conference blaming DEI as a possible cause of the crash? Let me just say this. I grew up in the era of affirmative action. Okay. I'm a white guy. I've filled that out on all my things. I've never once claimed I was anything other than that. I grew up in the era of affirmative action. I grew up when this was released onto the world and popularized, particularly as it related to admissions in colleges. Let me explain something to you. If you're my age or older and you are blaming DEI for any shortcoming in your life, you're a fucking loser. You're a grade A fucking loser. You're a loser. I've never been held back from one single thing because there was a black applicant or a woman. It's never happened. This is some bullshit caricature about, you know, who's really staffing these jobs and who really should be staffing these jobs. Yeah, I'm not one of these guys who's blind to the reality that there were even up to the CIA making videos talking about how, hey, we're upending democracies, but at least we're doing it with a diversified staff. Like, these are absolutely shields that corporations will use to, promote causes just to shield their fucked up practices. I fully appreciate that. And I've been saying that on this chat for years, as a matter of fact. However, we don't know what the crash was caused by. I can just tell you that's my number one airport I go in and out of at DCA. I don't like going to Dulles because Dulles is like an hour from my house. It's really, really far. BWI, not much closer. I don't like that. DCA is my airport. Dude, there are choppers there all the time. All the time. I remember when Trump was inaugurated here on, what was that, the 20th. Dude, I don't even live close to that. I mean, I live in the city, but I don't live close to the water. And there you could hear helicopters all day. What it turned out was, New York Times reported, accordingly, there were supposed to be 2 people in the tower, one manning for the routes for the Black Hawk, and then one doing the routes for that particular line that had the planes coming in. And there was one person doing both. It was supposed to have been 2. You'll recall that the head of the FAA had to quit on the day that Trump was inaugurated, because this is a guy that got sideways with Musk for safety standards not being upheld for SpaceX, and then Musk, basically under pressure with the backing of the government, forced the guy to quit. And then they have reduced staff since then through various different things, the executive orders and whatnot. Like, I don't know exactly what the full issue was. I can tell you that it is an extremely busy area. But blaming this, only a fucking idiot would do that. Only a fucking idiot would do that. Only. That is the only possible way you could make that argument without really knowing any other details. Well, it had to have been, it must have been the blacks. That's you have to have a caricatured understanding of who staffs the fucking federal government to think some shit that stupid. You really do. You really have to have like a like in your head, it looks like a cartoon version of Tom and Jerry, like going after each other. Like that's the sense of the world you have to have. Like, if that's your instinct, fucking losers think shit like that. Run Dim Cheeks, great name. Luke, which do you have more faith in, GFL or Conor passing a random sobriety test? GFL. Also, looking forward to your presentation on the changes in internet pornography since the 90s. I might keep that one in the holster. Oh, Jesus, Bryce, what are we doing? This donk says, thoughts on the president of the United States and his cabinet saying the DC crash was caused because of diversity. How fucked are we as a nation? Super fucked. Super fucked. Super fucked. I mean, I'll probably be fine. Somebody who looks like me, probably be fine. But listen, I know that the DEI stuff is like in CRT before that. I know that it's electoral poison to like bring it up if you're running for office or something, or even if you're trying to convince conservatives. They have absolutely convinced themselves that, there is just an army of black and brown folks, women or not, that have overtaken corporate America, that have overtaken legal institutions, that have overtaken higher education institutions, that have overtaken people in your workforce, and including but not limited to the federal government, like an army of them that are just like massively unqualified, like go in there just pressing buttons. Meanwhile, we just made a guy who couldn't even make company commander the department or the head of the Defense Department. Like, he couldn't even make company fucking commander. Meanwhile, the guy that came before him, like, go look at his military record. I'm not saying he did the job perfectly, far from it. They all aided and abetted fucking, crimes against Palestinians. But, in terms of whose resume is more qualifying. This is absurd. It's absurd. It's a caricaturized version of reality. I am happy to meet you halfway and say, were these some of them anyway, because they're all kind of different, but were some of these programs used to shield true corporate intent and abuse? Like 1 billion%. Like, absolutely. And to that extent, they are not useful. But the idea that like the country is filled with manifestly unqualified minorities shoved to the front of the line to go do jobs, that is the imagination of people who simply aren't in touch with reality. That is simply not accurate. It's not. But if if you don't understand anything about the way dude, if your whole platform is we're just going to trigger the opposing party and we don't really have a core vision for competent governance and we don't really want to put people in there who are actually manifestly qualified to do these jobs, we just want to shove in people that are loyal to the various causes that we believe in, but our entire cause is just what the opposite of. I mean, I remember when Sarah Palin was saying hands off my big gulp at CPAC, and now it's Make America Healthy Again. Some of you motherfuckers owe Michelle Obama an apology. I don't even like her. And some of you owe her an apology. This is what I mean. It's just whatever you guys do, we'll just do the opposite. This is the platform, then this is the opposite of platform, and this is what we run on without really any clear sense of like what effective governance looks like and what are the actual ingredients that go into it. Yeah. I remember Sarah Palin at CPAC. Hands off my big gulp. Okay. If Bryce is not booted off the roster for this, and he won't be, what would it take for someone to be kicked out of the UFC for something they said? Nothing. If you can't get it kicked out for this, then you can't. Like for saying things, nothing. Or, no, sorry. Here's what you can be kicked out for. Saying the UFC is a monopoly. That's what you could be kicked out for. That's what you could be kicked out for. Say something bad about Dana White. Yeah, you could be kicked. But for saying nice shit about Hitler, no. Not that. Even though I pretty much disagree with you on everything. All right. Losing a pet, which I consider to be a member of the family, is devastating. Yep, that's what I mean, dude. If there's one thing that can cross-cut different people living different lives, I will keep Barbas and you in my thoughts. Long live Barbas. Thank you, my friend. I do genuinely appreciate that. I do. Just want to share my condolences for Barbas. Thank you, guys. Truly sorry for your loss. I've always been a dog lover, but that increased exponentially when I rescued Jerome, my canine companion. And I'm glad to hear that, man. I'm glad he's brought you some joy. OG McGee says, ever heard about Greg Palast? If his reporting on voter suppression is accurate, 3 to 4 million votes were purged for dubious reasons last November. And if true, Harris would have had 3 more million. I don't think that's true. I don't know who this gentleman is. I've not reviewed any of his reporting or whatever he purports to be the evidence. I just think that Kamala lost because she sucked. Izzy says, with WWE on Netflix and UFC merged under TKO Group, how likely is UFC to join after April 15th? Well, I mean, I think they can start talking to them, but are they going to go on Netflix? I would take the over on that. If it happens, does that mean the end of pay-per-view? No. It would not mean the end of pay-per-view because they wouldn't want to just give that away. They might give some of that away. I mentioned this point before, but like what happens if the Netflix deal after 5 years goes kaput and they want to go back to pay-per-view? You've conditioned the fan base to no longer accept it. What I think might happen is they'll limit the amount of pay-per-views, or they'll give you other stuff on the Netflix app, or some kind of way to like lessen the load, but I don't think that they would ever remove it completely. Thank you, my friend. Appreciate that. Sam says, I spent the other day in BC's live chat and had the most fun I've had in years. My man is a national treasure. You've got a great co-host. Yeah, he's awesome. By the way, one more time, call on the fights this weekend. Fun. Will Rogan's attachment to MAGA be his downfall? No. His show has turned into Rush Limbaugh with DMT and shit comedians. Well, it's always had shit comedians, but everything in Trump's orbit eventually gets destroyed. That's not the problem that he's got, I think. I mean, in many ways, he has no problem, right? I mean, he's rich and as successful as can possibly be, given the medium. What I'm going to say is a different thing. He had started up as like a curious guy who was just exploring his interest and talking to his friends. And Rogan, I think one thing that you should say very positively of him, I mean, I don't know how true this is now, but it certainly felt like it was true for a time, that he had a diverse array of interests. He liked MMA, he liked hunting, and he went to go hunt for elk, and he was curious about the bow and the American Indian, and he was curious about space and had Neil deGrasse Tyson. He was just kind of a curious guy having fun with his friends, and it kind of picked up, and he got to a point where he could then like pick the brains of like people who were, not all the time, but Neil deGrasse Tyson's and whoever your favorite expert was he had on that made you like see something different that you'd never seen before. This is fantastic. I think that's truly where he excelled. But then it just got so popular and so popular and so popular that now it's become something that was once subversive, and I think now is the exact opposite. Now it's where the country's elite go to launder their reputation. It's where they go to launder their image. And I think Joe is still kind of an autopilot, treating these guys like he was treating his friends, treating Mark Zuckerberg like he was treating, I don't know, Ari Shaffir. I mean, that's not the same way, but you know what I mean? Like, kind of taking the same approach he's always had. When it worked, it worked, it worked, it worked, it worked. But now it's got to the point where you've got like, dude, I mean, these are evil people that you're having on, he's having on his show, and he's not checking them at all. You know what I mean? I don't have a fond view of Mark Zuckerberg, and I didn't long before they changed their content moderating policies. Anyone who's been watching this live chat knows that is very, very true. I have never liked him. I've never thought highly of him. I don't think he's some kind of visionary or fucking genius. And I think the products he has unleashed on the world have done an enormous amount of harm for which he needs to answer for. But he ain't going to get that on Joe's show, because Joe's got a posture of just fucking around, having fun with his friends and exploring his curiosities. Well, you've reached the stage of success where you now need to be more mindful of this. And he's just kind of on autopilot about it. And it's changing the nature of the show to me in, I hope amenable ways. But just having on the people that want to fucking destroy the state's capacity to do anything. I mean, he had multiple billionaires on in a month discussing the need to destroy various agencies of the government that are charged with protecting consumers. Multiple, and then all of them being like, I don't even know what that agency does. It's like, yes, the fuck you do. You wish for it to go away because it is an obstacle to your hegemony. What the fuck are you talking? He just not checked at all. This is bad. This is not good. This would be bad no matter what their powerful people should never be having a platform where they can just launder their reputation like that. Terrible. And I hope that he finds a way to change that. Just want to say really sorry about Barbas and the horrible tragedy that occurred in your city this morning. Yeah, man. Dude, 4 people on that flight, 3 on the helicopter, 67 people. And dude, they were like, go look at the map. Like they were, I'm not even kidding, 5 seconds from landing, if that. You know what I mean? Because the plane is descending and it's right there. Like the water is right next to it. Let me pull up something here, man. Let me show this map. Oh, man. Look at this shit. No survivors in the crash, dude. What the fuck? What the fuck, bro? Let me, Jesus. Man, I can't. Washington Post is making me click on some stuff and then pay for it. I don't want to sign in here, but you get the idea. It's quite bad. Manos arriba. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Luke, your video about Barbas was very touching, and I had to stop because I was getting emotional. I have an old lab with dementia, so the end is near. Your words came from the heart. All I can say is, man, it fucking sucks, but we owe him a good death. Based on the way over-the-top criticisms, mockery of Umar and Usman's performance, it seems that so many fans are preying on Team Habib's downfall. Why? Because they've been the standard bearer of excellence, and people just turn on that. I've lived long enough to just see it. Like, people just get sick of somebody winning, and they don't want him to win anymore. It's why I hated on the Patriots. You know, I'm not immune from that. I do the same. I mean, I don't hate on Habib, but, you know, same thing. Am I paying attention to the Kash Patel Senate confirmation? No. How do I see him impacting the FBI? Let's see. If best practices for weight cutting was around back in the day, who would rule what weight classes? I think Aldo 135 and GSP 155. Any others? Silva maybe 170. Although you would have had to have good wrestling. Johnny Hendricks, I think, would have been more at 170 for sure. That's a big one. Initial reaction to that Black Hawk crashing into the commercial aircraft in your backyard. Yeah. Reported that everyone aboard on the plane was killed. They need to see what happened. Was it understaffing? Was there pilot error on the Black Hawk? I can't imagine there was flight error on the. I haven't heard anything about the flight error itself. All I know is last year, and I think this was bipartisan. I'm not sure. Last year, there was they added a bunch more flights to DCA despite a lot of protests, both from, I think, various labor unions who work at DCA, various airline associations, about the risks inherent with trying to add more flight traffic to DCA, because it is international. Like, you can fly to like Canada from there. I think you can fly to Mexico. I mean, it is nominally international, but the true international is Dulles, which is in Northern Virginia. But they wanted to add a bunch to it. They wanted to add a whole bunch of traffic to it. And it's like, okay, it's great that we have more international flights, but you can see just how absolutely insane it is to do. I got to show you this picture because here, let me do this. Here, let's do this one. Okay, let me see if I can pull this up. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. Let's see. I'm going to remove. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Here. All right, 1 second. Let me remove this, and then I'm going to add it back. Wait. Hold on. Share screen. Let's do this one. Okay. So let's do it this way. Oop. Let me move that this way. Okay. If you see here, this is the crash site. So this is DC. This is DC. This is Joint Base Anacostia. There's like the naval. There's the naval has a Missile Defense Institute out there. Here's the Potomac. This is where it crashed. These are the runways right here. This is Gravelly Point. So Gravelly Point is a place that I go to with my family. And from the top there, you can watch the planes come and land here and then skid down the runway. So they go over your head when they come down. So you got planes coming this direction, and then you've got on this waterway itself, all around it, including underneath some of these bridges, you've got helicopter traffic. And like, not just helicopter traffic like Blackhawks, but the news. You have there's a GW hospital, which is not far from there. So you'll get medical teams flying in and out there. Dude, it's a fucking, it's insane. It's insane there. So, they added already on a difficult situation. They added more routes last year. It was already bad. And then again, there were potentially, according to the New York Times, some staffing issues potentially in the tower itself. Not great, Bob. Not great. Here, and for folks who think I might be lying about that, let me pull this up real quick too. Let me pull this up. Here. Have a gander at this. This is from the New York Times. Staffing at the air traffic control tower at the Reagan National Airport was, quote, not normal for the time of day and the volume of traffic, according to the internal preliminary Federal Aviation Administration safety report about the collision that was reviewed by the New York Times. The controller who was handling helicopters in the airport's vicinity Wednesday night was also instructing planes that were landing and departing from its runways. Those two jobs are assigned to two controllers rather than one. Yeah, not great, Bob. Not great. Not great. For UFC 314, the rumored bout is Ilia versus Volk 2. Assuming it's true, what would Volk have to do differently to pull out a W? Go back in time. I don't think he can. I mean that sincerely. Having a Cow says, thank you for the donation too, by very, very generous. I've watched the live chats from broom closets at MMA Fighting and your in-laws' basement, but Barbas was the OG LT supporter. This is for him, man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are being really sweet to me, and I really appreciate it. Ray says, Sweden's had 30 bombings. What? Yesterday, a famous Quran burner provocateur was executed in his home. Today, I'm reevaluating if I want to live here or not in 10 to 15. I haven't heard anything about. I'm not saying it's not true. That's not what I'm saying. Not at all. I don't know anything about Sweden. 30 bombings? That seems bad. In a world where UFC paid fighters 50%, what would a reasonable system to determine how that 50% was distributed between all the fighters? A collective bargaining agreement? What's up, bro? Welcome to the party. Aqua says, what modern fighters 2015 or later would have had the most success and pride during its peak based on the way their matchmaking tournaments? I mean, the problem with that question is like a lot of them would have had it because they had best practices much better ironed out than they did in 2003. You know what I mean? Like Heath Herring was good at heavyweight because that's what the nature of heavyweight was back then. It's not because he was like an all-timer. You know what I mean? It's a little hard to say. Obviously 10-minute first round, anybody who had good cardio, I think would have been great. Somebody who wouldn't have been impeded by the ropes. So if they were very reliant upon the cage, that would not be so good for them. But other than that, I think a lot of the modern fighters would have done really well. You know what I mean? Would you consider renting an office again, being that you guys are looking for an office space for MK? Yeah, but like MK office space, I'm not going to rent one in New York City. I don't have money for that. AZ, welcome to the party. Emmett's KO aged like fine. Yeah, it kind of did. What's up, Jeff? Thank you. Dylan says, why do MMA fighters never attack crossed legs when their back is taken? Why do because you can break someone's ankles like that and you can really hurt them. It's a little hard to pull off and it's a little low percentage. Airbud said, I went on Twitter for the first time in months and it's insane how awful that space is. I'm glad to see you using Bluesky. It is amazing to me. I got a lot of pushback, including from members, about like bigging up. By the way, I have a response video I'm making, but I got other stuff I got to make first about Bluesky. It's like, dude, go look at my mentions tweeting about the Bryce thing, and all I said was I think it's kind of bad. I didn't say anything else. I didn't say I want UFC to fire him. I literally didn't say anything else. And there's just straight up Nazis in my mentions. And people have the fucking audacity to be like, oh, you want to run to the haven of Bluesky. It's like, I don't know if I'm affecting change in either place. I can just tell you, people who think Hitler is bad show up in my mentions at Bluesky. People who think Hitler is good show up in my mentions in Twitter. Why the fuck am I supposed to, like, what is this meaningfully adding to my life? What lessons am I learning about the value of different policy positions by having to tolerate people who think Hitler's awesome? And this is not rare. This is anything you tweet that nominally attracts that kind of crowd. They're on it like flies on shit all the time. All the time. It has, people have mistaken, like, guys, what makes a museum great? What makes a museum great? The answer is the curator. You can stuff the museum with as many things as you like. That's not going to make it better. You need someone that's got an eye for what is relevant. You need someone that's got an eye for what matters to facilitate a better discussion, a better understanding, a better way of communicating. You don't get any of that because we're just free-for-alling the conversation on Twitter, and that doesn't make it better. In fact, it just makes it louder and noisier and angrier and worse. And this is like people trying to tell me this is an enlightened way of having social media. I'm not calling for Twitter to be shut down. I'm telling you, this is not productive to anything. This is not a superior alternative to anything. Not if you wish to understand how the world works. No. Luke, is it me or is there very little buzz for Benavidez versus Morrell and Better Bia versus Bivol 2 outside of boxing circles? Dude, boxing in the United States had a major and amazing 2023, and they shifted everything to DAZN. PBC has shrunk dramatically. Top Rank is still kind of hanging around, but there's hardly any boxing on American television. There's hardly any boxers doing anything in the United States. PBC is barely hanging on by a thread, and everything else has shifted to DAZN, which has less than 1 million subscribers in the United States, which is not a profit-making business generally worldwide. And then everything else is in Saudi Arabia. Dude, that sport is in trouble in this country. I can't believe after 2023 I'm saying it, but I'm saying it. It's in trouble. It's in trouble. They're actively destroying the market here. Jared, thanks for giving Barbas a good home. Lucky dog. Thank you, my friend. Alan says, as a boxing diehard, I was surprisingly entertained by Knucklemania. BKFC won't make any megastars, but they can be a mega brand. What is their market potential and how they can get there? I don't know. I don't know. I think if anyone has hope for any long-term prospects for them, that's real and doable. But in order to make it, like, you can't be a mega brand without mega stars. It doesn't work. You have to have, like, this is a star. At the end of the day, combat sports is a star-driven business. There's ways to mitigate that, not in every case, blah, blah, blah. But at the highest level, it's star-powered. You have to have stars. You have to have stars. But if Conor gets out, who's to say? Sean says, I'm from Dublin. McGregor's comments to Hughes are absolutely farcical. That's an incredibly sensitive topic to say to someone from the North who wears tricolor. He's becoming a caricature. Guys, when I tell you that the Irish, like here in the United States, we treat Conor like, oh, or at least we have up to this point treated him like Captain Ireland. And like you saw him at the BYU game, like his brand here is fine. There's no damage to it at all. Nothing, zero, zip. But in Ireland, whoo, I mean, he is radioactive over there. He is reviled. It's insane how many different segments of Irish society that I come into contact with, and they don't, it's not that they're like, we don't like him. No, they hate him. They hate him. Dave says, I need a new MK bomber for upcoming trip. My original is very worn. Any update on merch? Not yet. Not yet. Who gets their work in an art exhibit first, Tukey or Delta 8BC? Delta 8BC, in fairness. Also, Dana will only kick you out of the UFC if you criticize his business practices. Yes, that's right. Like you want to get kicked out, say it's a monopoly. Your exit will be quick. Thoughts on Poetan versus? That's a good joke. That's a good joke. Dana addressed the Bryce idiocy immediately. Yeah, he needed to. He needed to. Tukes is a lovable mini Godzilla when coming home. Nina. Does private equity's profit-driven approach ultimately harm consumers by reducing value? And what are the broader economic, social impacts? Everything they touch turns to shit. Everything they touched is destroyed. And by the way, I really hope there's a way we can get bipartisan legislation to ban them from owning residential homes. I think that's absolutely. I saw that Atlanta has like some gigantic portion of the market is owned by private equity. Dude, they're going to fuck people. You think it's people are living at home too long now because they can't afford anything. Just wait. They will destroy it. They will destroy it like they destroyed. Pick a business. Toys R Us. Toys R Us was destroyed by private equity. They are a cancer to the American consumer. They are a cancer to the American market. And to the extent we can absolutely limit their ability to have any say over housing or other substantive things, healthcare, you name it, keep them out of it. They are thieves, frauds, liars. They will destroy the American economy. And what I am saying absolutely should be bipartisan. People, even though they disagree with me on anything else, should be nodding their head about that. Look, after all the decades of bombarding your brain with thousands of MMA names, faces, and personalities, who is a random fighter of yesterday you'd like to shout out to the people? How about Bristol Morunde? You guys remember Bristol Morunde? Jeff says, since BKFC is technically boxing, is it subject to the Ali Act? I don't know how the commission defines it. That's a great question. I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I don't know. I'll look into it. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how they consider it. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess we'll see. Matias, saludos from Mexico again. Okay, we went over this one already. What kind of matchups do you think would be good for Aaron Pico? Should he sign? We kind of went over this one a little bit as well. Anyone in the top. I mean, start him here. Let me close this out. Start him here. 45. Start him. Dude, how about Giga Chikadze? Start there. You know what I mean? Like, start there. Fuck you. I mean, I'm fighting Bryce Mitchell since I'm not going to cut him. Dana shit on Bryce, then went on the it's free speech, y'all can pay to watch him get beat response. Dana will try and profit off the comments. Yeah. Well, I mean, we know what the score is at this point. Luke, here's a heavy ask. I'd like your perspective on death. A close friend who was 28 passed away unexpectedly. Oh, Jesus. What process led you towards acceptance after your mother died? Survival. I'm being serious. Survival. I couldn't function after she died for a little while. I had to go on Adderall just so I could concentrate, because I was sitting at work and my computer monitor, like things would, I'm moving, like I'm moving the mouse, I'm moving, you know what I mean? And like nothing is registering. It was just all, I couldn't function. First of all, I'm very sorry to hear what you're saying. What process led you towards acceptance? Survival, brother. Survival. And I'm not mincing words even a little bit. Survival. Yeah, no punishment for Bryce at all. It's a gross fucking world, bro. It's broken. True or false? Poatan defeats Ankalaev by decision. False. Canelo defeats Crawford by decision. False. Kansas City Chiefs end up three-peating against the Eagles. Nobody wants that, so that's exactly what's going to happen. So I'll say true. Travis Kelce proposes to Taylor Swift. Probably true. Probably true. Speaking of Hitler, he was vegetarian. Despite multiple evidences of this, the vegan community is in denial and refuse to believe this fact. Which fact does the MMA community refuse to believe? That MMA, that UFC's that the UFC monopoly is bad for MMA. Any books you'd recommend about self-discipline? I don't read self-help books. I don't read it. I can just tell you what the best stuff I've ever come to understand about it, which is that if you rely on, I'll never forget this. This was years ago. He fought in Strikeforce for a time. He was in the judo team, the Olympic judo team. He was actually on the team Rousey was on. His name is Roddy Ferguson. Roddy Ferguson, back when this was very rare, he had a black belt in judo and a black belt in jiu-jitsu. That was very rare at the time he had that, but he had it. And I remember him talking about his training to make the judo, the Olympic judo team. He didn't medal, but you're a judo Olympian, you're probably fucking awesome, right? And I remember him saying that, he would make a training block for like 3 months, and like each day, like he knew exactly what he had to do, and there would be some alteration. And he goes, there are times that, it's Tuesday, I have to do, fitting in and Newaza and all this shit. And he was like, I just don't want to do it. And he goes, I want to be very clear, like what I want to do is absolutely irrelevant. It's irrelevant. It means nothing. People rely on motivation. I want to lose weight, and I'm going to use that to lose weight. I want to, whatever the goal is, and they want to use how they feel as a means to get there. And of course, having like that can be powerful. It can be quite powerful, both in terms of the moment itself and over the long expanse of time. But the reality is, it's probably not what you need. What you actually need is something different. What you need is discipline. Discipline is doing things when you don't want to do them will help you achieve all of your goals. I mean that sincerely. Learning how to do things you don't want to do. Buddy, whatever you want is on the other side of that. Mark my fucking words. Dreadhead said, Manos arriba for Barbas. Thank you so much and then thank you for all that you do. Your live chats on MK definitely made my week so much better. Hope you and yours are going okay. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Stefan said, what would MMA look like if there were random weigh-ins out of camp limiting fighters to plus or minus 10 pounds of their walk-around weight? Guys would just be in different weight classes. Guys would be bigger. Everyone would just be bigger. I don't know if it'd be radically different. Two Changs, build a 3-leg upset parlay. Madrimov plus 100. Okay. Parker over Dubois, 190. Zhang at plus 130. Okay. Morrell plus 175. Chisora over Otto plus 165. Damn. I take Madrimov at plus 100. I'll take Parker and I'll take Morrell. But I don't gamble, so please don't do that. Could you believe Ariel actually defending Elon's salute with the same BS? Oh, he was just weird, awkward line. I was blown away. I didn't hear that. But, dude, I liked how, like I said last week, because he was biting his lip when he does it. Dude, he was trying, he did it so hard. It looked like he was it was, 6 or 7 years ago. And remember guys were like dabbing on the haters. It looked like he was doing the Nazi version of dabbing on the haters. Like, that's how hard he was like, I'm dabbing on these haters. I was like, yo, that's okay. I see you dabbing on the haters out there. It just happens to be Nazi or or even if it's ironic, which is probably, I get that he trolls and shit. I'm just like, he did it with such force that people being like, oh, it's a spastic gesture. I'm like, okay, is it a spastic gesture when he retweets Pizzagate truthers and Holocaust deniers too? What do you think about Jamal Hill's future from here? He's got work to do. I thought he boxed poorly against Jiri. He kept reaching with that left hook without setting it up and fucking paid for it. He's got work to do. Skill development issues. T-Ball Paul. Whenever BC mentions the horse's mouth, I always know what he's talking about. P.S. Darren Owen is bald. All right. Edgar says, you see the news on the Ravens kicker. Oh, some dude, like, they didn't like, something about massages, but I mean, I literally glanced at the headline. I didn't see it. T-Ball Paul, I learned John Stewart went to William & Mary too. We went to the same, I mean, he was years ahead of me, but we went to the same dorm. I was in Yates 3rd South. Or no, sorry, Yates 3rd North. He was in Yates 3rd South. Dave says, have you ever had a good root beer float? Oh, they're my favorite, bro. I love it. When I was a kid, that was like all I had. Luke, what do you recommend to eat for a heavy bulk, and why is it Taco Bell? Yeah, yes, you can do that. I don't recommend doing that. I don't recommend just eating bullshit to get big. I just recommend eating 500 to 600 to 700 more calories per day of what you want, but you should still eat pretty clean because you actually need the nutrition to power you, and you want to develop good habits. And Neil says, had a pet Doberman pass away in 2002 when I was a kid. The memories still live on. It's funny how our pets end up becoming family. They absolutely do. They absolutely do. Please No Boss said, Luke, I want to recommend a video called The South Bank of the Rubicon by Innuendo Studios. When you watch it, I want to know what your personal South Bank is. I've been grappling with what mine is. Othello, send me a screenshot of this, please. You should look up Dr. Shiva. He does great work. Okay. Lapo says, is there a fault with the 2.0 Dagestani style of Usman? Their style of striking at range doesn't complement their wrestling ability. Bilal strike at boxing range to put force to the fence. Yes, Bilal's version of it is better. I think it's a little hard to be like, I'm going to be a takedown guy and a kicking at range guy. That's tough. Rip Barbas. Thank you, man. Hope you and your family are taking care of yourselves. We're doing our best, dude. I really appreciate it. Hamza, who's more intelligent, Tito, Bryce, or BJ? Tito. Tito opened a business, and I think it's still in business. Like, dude, Tito fumbles over his words, and he probably has some like legitimate. I'm not even doing like a joke. Like, he probably has some legitimate brain issues. I'm not trying to be like. I know people like bag on him. I'm actually not bagging on him. I mean, he's not my guy, but like, I'm not bagging on him. But like, dude, he has always found a way to make himself relevant to somebody. Now he's just kind of doing the MAGA grift thing, but you know, he knows how to command an audience. I'll say that. Caleb, did you see Dan Hooker discuss the CKB team not telling him about the Zuckerberg meetup as they knew he'd beat Zuck up in sparring? No, but that's awesome. T-Ball Paul, thoughts on Matt Walsh? I mean, who could give a fuck less? You know, I saw him saying I saw him say, you know, someone tell me like what good has come from putting women in the military. And it's like, okay, let's have that conversation, shall we? Because I served with a bunch. I've said this story to you guys before. First of all, one of the best Marines I ever served with was a woman, and she was a field radio operator in the hotel battery. Various powers that be wanted to kick her out. Never really worked. They kept her in part because all of the NCOs and staff NCOs that she worked for realized right away she was smart as shit, worked hard, never fucking complained. 4 women, had a first-class PFT. There was nothing you could task her with relevant to what our duties were that she couldn't pull off as good or better than the men. And in fact, she routinely fucking did. And in fact, when it came to leadership, she was unequivocally better than all of them. She got promoted faster than I did, and we checked into the unit the exact same day. It would be absurd to think that some of the fucking Blue Falcons that were in my unit at that time, because they were men, would have done a better job than her. I am not for putting people in positions of power or leadership or work that they cannot do. That is never going to be an argument that I'm going to make. But Matt Walsh asking, you know, what good has happened from bringing women in the military? Bitch, you know nothing. You know nothing about what the fuck you are talking about. The most masculine thing Matt Walsh has ever done is grown a beard, and it's really not even that great. Nothing else about him screams understanding of the world. He has no experience with this. He doesn't know what the fuck he is talking about. Just on this one issue alone. I have lived it. I have seen it. It would have made the force readiness of the unit I was in worse off getting rid of Marines like her. And I can tell you, it's not just her. And by the way, when we both got out of the Marine Corps, and I've told this story, it turned out half of the fucking leadership of that unit could have been court-martialed for sexually harassing her. And she never told a soul. Fuck you, Matt Walsh. You don't know shit. You don't know shit. You don't know shit. It would have, the force posture of that unit would have been affected getting rid of somebody like her. Get the fuck out of here. One of the best Marines I've ever served with, period. And I'm not saying she has to hump the fucking base plate for mortars, in an infantry squad. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying for what the task was that we had, running the Singars, running the wire, shoot, move, communicate, the whole bit. A+ fucking plus, bro. She was better than me. And I don't have any problem saying that. It's absurd. This is what I mean. Like, just assuming that because they're women, they must have just been stuffed in that role and they're no good. Dude, like, how fucking dumb do you have to be to think that, like, because she's a woman, she can't do tough jobs? Get the fuck out of here. It's so insane to me. It's insane to me that people like this can just say things. What good has happened from having women in the military? Bitch, I guarantee she would have been a better Marine than you. I'll bet my fucking life on that. I'll bet my life. I saw what she was capable of doing. And by the way, went to Paris Island, did the work, earned the fucking Eagle Globe and Anchor. Shut the fuck up. I've heard some talk regarding Islam and DDP fight at 185. They're not going to do that. Did you ever come to a conclusion on what was a preferred method of donation to help the channel? $200 dono or 200 in subs, 40 news? I don't know. Haven't worked out the math on that. Is there room for libertarianism on the left? I think broad coalitions win elections, so I'll say yes. I'd love to see you and MMA Joey collaborate. He reached out to me. I need to respond. You two are some of the only people on MMA YouTube I can tolerate, and I think you share similar views. I would have no problem doing that. Devin says, why did everyone overestimate Umar's wrestling capabilities, especially with him being... Dude, his wrestling is good. Any parallels to the Ankalaev? Dude, Umar's wrestling is good. It's really good. Now, why do we overestimate it? Because Marab's is special. Like, really special. But, dude, Umar can wrestle his ass off. Darcy, I'm an Aussie and can finally root for Izzy. All right, good. Steven, wearing my Barbas t-shirt today. Gonna miss the GOAT. Condolences to you and the fam. Thank you, guys. Two Changs. ESPN recently named Ken Shamrock best fighter of 1995 and Mark Coleman 96. Who wins if they fight in 96? Mark Coleman. Too big, too strong. Cheeto says, I'll be visiting Madrid soon. Any suggestions? Jesus. I mean, where could you go wrong? Get a cup of coffee, and they're going to call it Plaza Mayor. Get a cup of coffee in Plaza Mayor. Go to a game. You can go to the Metropolitano Wanda, whatever the fucking Atletico Stadium is, or you can go to the Bernabeu. Isn't Guernica the artwork in their art museum in Madrid? That one I would see. I mean, dude, just there's a million. I mean, I couldn't even begin to tell you. Like, there's a million things. Andrew, Luke, Miguel Torres, and Dana, how times have changed. Dude, they canned Miguel Torres for making a rape van joke. Lewis, do you think the UFC gets rid of... No, they're not going to get rid of shit. Please don't collab with MMA Joey. Unbearable. People say that about me too. So, maybe they're right. I don't know. Did Bisping discuss the gun flagging incident on the set of Den of Thieves 2 on his podcast? Also, is Bisping in that movie? I've not seen Den of Thieves 2. I could not tell you. Luke, why aren't people considering the serious likelihood of Morrell being on EPO? Because that's a baseless accusation. Johnston says, will you exercise your newfound privilege of attending press briefings, you content creator podcast? Oh, in the White House? Straight out of the Dana White playbook. No, I'll pass. By the way, it's pronounced hone, not home. What are we talking about here? I mean, I could be wrong. I don't know what we're talking about, though. Citizen, welcome to the party. Have you heard of Kawasai Galaxy, largely considered the best pure boxer from Thailand? I also think you should look into Lordzilla. I know. Lordzilla, I know. I think that's how you pronounce it. But I've not heard of Kawasai Galaxy. I have not. Okay, I will look into that. Action Jackson, honest thoughts on Schaub and Robin Black. I didn't watch the draft. I saw one person give a review saying they thought Schaub did a very underrated job. I guess he did the one comment where he talked about Yoel being a different species. I don't think he made anything by it, but I didn't watch, and I'm just not going to sit there. Listen, I don't have any problem with Robin Black. I don't know if he has a problem with me or not. He might. I don't know. I don't have time for petty fucking disputes like that. I really don't. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I liked your take earlier on the declining birth rates, but what are your thoughts on the passport bro movement? Single Western men looking for women abroad. I mean, traveling is nice, but it seems to me like a lot of guys who are looking for, I think a lot of passport bros are basically guys who can't make meaningful connections with women as peers. So they get them with situations where women have, I'm going to be honest about Colombia. There's many wonderful things about it, but it's a very pro-man society. Like it's in heavy ways, and then doing it when they're economically disadvantaged relative to yourself. I'll say this, and this is, I think a lot of men are scared to pick women as smart as they are and as economically powerful as they are, and as I don't want to overly generalize that there's a lot of men not like that, but for the passport bros, I think they're trying to get a leg up on women whom are relatively speaking impoverished and come from cultures that are, it just makes it easier to make a connection, which I can understand to a degree. But hello, I made one, but I made mine here when she came here. I didn't make it over there. And my wife is, I can assure you, not, they call it machista. She's not that at all. It's Bryce getting a Tesla in Hugo Boss. If you honk the horn on a Tesla, it says Heil Hitler. I may have made that up, but it could be true. Thoughts on Crystal Ball's 2018 Super PAC raised $440K, gave herself $150K, 3% to progressives. I don't. You're telling me something I have no context with which to. It sounds bad, but I don't know. And by the way, thank you for gifting a membership. Thank you, as well as to you, Eric. Thank you as well. Liam is Muay Thai Golden Era. Okay, it's a great source for you and those interested in Muay Thai. I've lost 2 dogs over the years, and my pit bull is 10 now. Damn, bro. I wish you the best. Thank you, Eric, as well. Just keep in mind that there are people who are not Nazis but use X or prefer it to keep using it for reasons not related to politics. I read your post through X because it's just easier for me. I understand it's got a much bigger user base. I'm just tired of Nazis showing up in my mentions. I got to tell you, it is not fun. I like skits and bits, but I managed to follow you on Twitter for a decade and not get blocked. Just want to say sorry about Barbas. Thanks for all your content. Well, thank you too, Thanks for all your support as well. I really appreciate it. I can't even read my mentions anymore because it's so filled with, there's good people in it, of course, but then it's just filled with Nazis. I'm sick of it. Thoughts on UK grooming gangs? I know literally less than nothing about this situation, other than I've seen it come up in the stories. I would be speaking completely out of my ass if I had told you I'd read a single article about it. Thank you. Welcome to the party. Big facts on Matt Walsh being wrong about females in the military. I'm a Signal SSG in the Army, and 2-4 of my Joes are female, and my top performer on their MOS, PT, and career progression. This does not surprise me at all. I'm not saying they work well in all occupations, in all MOSs, in all units, in all ways. That's not my point. My point is not that whatsoever. But the idea that they are not enormously good contributors to a vast array of military capabilities is fucking stupid. Just had to put down my dog on Christmas Eve after his battle with lymphoma. I'm so sorry, bro. I know that's not easy. I can't believe how quiet my house is now. I feel you, brother. I really do. It's amazing how much energy and love a dog can bring to a home. They can make it. And then last but not least, thoughts on Jai Opataya. I think he's awesome and a great prospect. I don't think he's got anything for Usyk, but we shall see. This was a long one. I have to get going. I'm late for an interview with Dennis from Submission Radio. So I have to get going. Thank you all for watching. I greatly appreciate it. I'm out of here. If you want to reach me, lukethomasnews@gmail.com. Thank you for all the well wishes about Barbas. Thank you to all the donations. Thank you to everybody who watched. And if you just watched and you liked the video, thank you as well. But when it comes to Barbas, thank you guys so much. As I said before, no matter all our differences, I feel like when it comes to losing a pet, everyone really knows what that feels like. And it does help us to understand other people. It's a pain that we all share, unfortunately, but it tells you how awesome dogs are and what they can bring to your life. All right, I'm out of here. Until next time, stay frosty. Bye.